everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the quarterfinals of Pro Tour Gatecrash 2013. Rich Hagan, Brian David Marshall, and Louis Scott Vargas with you in the booth. And we begin with Melissa DeTora of the United States. She is up against Tom Martell, also of the United States. It's the Stars and Stripes forever here at Pro Tour Gatecrash. 7 of the top 8 are from the United States. Let's see what happens. Brian, Luis, what are your expectations for the top 8? BDM, take it away.
Let's do it.
Well, I got to say, I think Melissa has a really great matchup here. She's playing the deck that I've been calling Wolf Run Rant. And and a deck you know quite a bit about, Luis, actually.
Yeah, actually, me, Efro, and Ben Stark, who two of them in the top 8 here, we played this at GP San Antonio earlier this year. It was actually less good then than it was now because it wasn't actually good against zombies, and that's what won the tournament, and we all played against it a bunch. But the deck that Efro actually kind of put together, which was Bant with Wolf Runs and Centaur Healers and Restoration Angels, is pretty much what Melissa's playing now, though obviously her and I think the French have tuned and tested it a lot.
So we are underway. Just lands from Melissa DeTora. Got a Doom Traveler for Tom Martell, and that's your early play.
Oh, you didn't take
And Champion of the Parish. Looks like.
There's the Doom Traveler.
Yeah, Champion of the Parish, Champion of the Parish. Doom Traveler comes down. We've got 2 counters on one counter on the other. And Melissa under pressure early, as she untaps with 3 very lovely land, but nothing else right now.
Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Tom Martell's hand? We see he's holding a Reckoner, a Conscripts, a Blood Crypt, and a Sacred Foundry.
So he's unlikely to want to drop the Reckoner here, just given that a Wrath would be really bad for him. But now that there's a Centaur Healer in play, unless he draws a human that he can play this turn, he actually can't really attack all that well. So luckily his deck is generally good against Wrath, and that Falcon Wrath Aristocrat that it looks like he just drew will help quite a bit there.
Centaur Healer is the first creature out of Melissa's deck, so gain 3 life.
So let's take a look now at what Melissa's got to work with.
Her hand is decent. She doesn't actually have the Wrath, which obviously Martell doesn't know, but Detention Sphere and then 2 more life gain creatures. I think this is one of her better draws in this matchup. Basically, I mean, like in every matchup, all she wants to do is survive until she can cast her big Revelation or use the Wolf Run a bunch. And the fact that Tom has to respect the Wrath pretty much the entire time gives her a pretty big edge when she just wants to play more creatures onto the board.
Right, and even if he feels like she doesn't have the Wrath, I mean, she has so much card drawing and so much life gain and ways to buy like just additional possessions.
Yeah.
That he has to always think that it could be on the top of her deck, right?
It's red zone time for Tom Martell. In comes the team. He turns them all sideways with just a Centaur Healer on the opposite side of the board to possibly tangle in the red zone. And of course, Melissa's going to do that. She puts it in front.
I'll
block
4.
like that.
I'm at 16.
Take 4. I'm at 15, she says.
That's a pretty aggressive play by Martell, running a 2/2 champion into the 3/3 Centaur Healer. But
16.
it's kind of Wrath insurance because she takes a bunch of damage. He would have lost the guy to Wrath anyway. Now he can play the Reckoner without overextending quite as much.
And that is the 3rd creature he needs for his not particularly relevant battalion triggers, as it were. So Boros Reckoner comes down. We'll be seeing plenty of that through this top 8 potentially. It's been a real breakout card this weekend.
Yeah, and her having Detention Sphere in hand is actually pretty huge because it kills Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. That's like one of her best answers to it, and that's one of the most problematic cards against for the control decks.
Yeah, Detention Spheres have just been, we've seen them all over the place this weekend. You know, obviously, I mean, so many good blue-white control cards.
Yeah.
You know, Azorius Charm, Detention Sphere, obviously Sphinx's Revelation, and of course, Supreme Verdict.
And so here now it kind of looks like she might have the Wrath by attacking, but if he blocks, she doesn't even have to. So it's a pretty good attack.
Can often be easy to get into the mindset when you're playing notionally a control deck in a matchup that your creatures come ready pacified, that they're never going to attack, but why wouldn't you here?
Yeah, and with Wolf Runs and Thragtusk in her deck, she can actually just kill you out of nowhere. So getting her opponent's life total down is pretty important.
I mean, she can kill you with an auger of bolus.
And I'm sure she has in the tournament.
No effects.
So there we are, no effects either way, and that was a straight trade. The Centaur Healer for the Boros Reckoner.
3 points to Melissa's dome there.
Yeah, I mean, that was really good for Melissa, though. Like, again, Martell's respecting Wrath here by all his plays, but the fact that she doesn't have it means that him playing around it is really good for her, because she loves to trade a Centaur Healer for a Reckoner there.
And so Thragtusk comes down for the first time for Melissa DeTora. She gains 5 life, and once that Thragtusk dies, she'll be getting a 3/3 bonus. There's a reason that Thragtusk has been one of the most powerful cards in Standard.
Unsurprisingly, he just slams Aristocrat in there, because there's basically no penalty for ever doing that.
I mean, that's one of the reasons people were talking about Blind Obedience being an interesting card, because of cards like Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, if they come into play tapped, they're just not quite as exciting. You get a turn to breathe, deal with them, find your Detention Sphere or your Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, the combo of Wrath your team, and then your follow-up Thundermaw, Hellrider, Aristocrat coming to play tapped is pretty huge.
Yeah. We have our first game result of the top 8, blisteringly fast, and Gerry Thompson leads Joe Larsson 1-0 in the kind of blue, white, red, not quite mirror, but certainly similar kind of decks there. Gerry Thompson leads 1-0.
I mean, you have to think his Harvest Pyre is hugely advantaged over the Blasphemous Act in that semi-mirror.
Yeah, it's not even close, because Act sometimes you can't cast because there aren't enough creatures, or because your opponent has Reckoner, and if you cast Act, you take the damage off their Reckoners before yours because of how the triggers stack, whereas Harvest Pyre is just a fireball for 15 out of nowhere.
That you can also Snapcaster back. You don't actually need to have it in your hand. You can just Thought Scour it into your yard.
Yeah, the Pyre was by far like the best part about the deck that we found while testing.
So we're into the red zone once again with Tom Martell. As he sends in his Champion of the Parish, you see the dice with 2 there, indicating that it is a 3/3 right now.
I'll take it all.
I'm going to take
I'm
the
at 11.
lot.
Looks like Melissa's just interested in racing here, especially since next turn she's going to get to go Healer Detention Sphere, which is a pretty sweet follow-up to attacking for 5. And there's a Revelation.
That hand is good. Even I know that hand's good.
And let's just take a look at what Tom's, who's down to 2 cards in hand.
He really wants to untap with Aristocrat in play, take the Thragtusk, sack it, get a token, but I don't think that's going to happen this time.
Would you consider that a misplay if Melissa let that happen?
I think if she doesn't Detention Sphere the Aristocrat, she's setting herself up, but I can't see how she avoids it here. I mean, she has another 3-drop and 6 lands. It's actually perfect.
There's no temptation to sit back on 6 mana and go
Revelation
for 3?
No, I cannot imagine she would do that.
You have more. The Detention Sphere represents more life.
Yeah, and all you want to do is slow roll the Revelations, because every turn is like another card, another life, which draws you closer to your second Revelation, and from then it's pretty academic.
You start chaining them, it's disgusting.
Yeah, Revelation is quite the card. The funny thing is, of all the blue-white cards, the one that makes these decks possible is Azorius Charm, because it does everything. It's a removal spell and it's a cantrip, and that smooths out your draws and lets you play a bunch of removal without having a bunch of dead cards in your deck.
Gerry Thompson likened Azorius Charm to Vapor Snag.
Yeah, Vapor Snag is pretty close.
Oh, wow. It sounds like we had a free Loxodon and Smiter at the back table.
That's right. Owen Turtenwald had Liliana of the Veil down, says, how about we discard? And Eric Froehlich, thank you very much. I'll have a free Loxodon and Smiter. Eric Froehlich leads Owen Turtenwald 1-0.
And, it's nice to know that, you're not going to be gloaty on one side or bitter on the other side of that at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're both very good friends, and Ether decided it might be a good time for an elephant.
So there is the Detention Sphere from Melissa. As anticipated, the Centaur Healer came down. More life for Melissa. She's back up to 12, as you see, leads 12-9 in this one. And the Detention Sphere will send the Aristocrat away.
Yeah, Martell's sacking it in response, but it doesn't impact, I don't think, much here, like, regardless of what happened.
He doesn't really have a way to kill a Detention Sphere.
No, and I don't think he has a way to reanimate his guy either. So Knight of Infamy is not irrelevant here, for sure.
So that's 2-1 protection from white, and has Exalted.
Also pumps Champion of the Parish. So.
Yeah, human.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that will enable the Champion of the Parish, currently 3-3, about to become 4-4.
Yep.
to tangle successfully with Centaur Healer.
About to become 5-5.
And then 6-6 once if he attacks with just that.
Thanks to the Exalted Trigger. And that is what he does. So you're looking at a 6-6 going into the red zone.
I certainly wouldn't fault Melissa for blocking here. I think preserving your life to buy time for Revelation is reasonable. And if he wants to get Exalted, he can only attack with one creature a turn. But by not blocking, she also gets to double block next turn if he sends Exalted, because it would be bigger than Thragtusk.
Right. So she does take all the damage. She drops to 6, untaps with 6 land in play. She draws.
That looked like a Kessig Wolf run to me.
Yeah, drawing a land that doesn't come to play tapped is really good for her here, because she just wants to Revelation for 4 and like kind of set the game up. Whereas Martell's, this is going to be pretty close, because Zealous Conscripts on Thragtusk next turn, if he draws a land, is going to be really, really impactful. So she goes to 10 if that happens, blocks the Thragtusk, and actually, it looks like she actually, she would die then if he draws a land here.
Yeah.
So here we go. Tom Martell untaps with 4. 5 is his magic number here in game 1 of the quarterfinals. Does he get one?
Well, that's not bad either.
Yeah, he gets a Falcon Wrath Aristocrats, which can actually, go in for 5. He can get in.
Yep.
Oh, but she's got still got the Sphinx's Revelation.
So
she can actually get in for 9 with it.
Yeah, he can go for it by attacking Exalted, sacking 3 humans, or actually, if he has 4 humans, 9. That's 1 short of killing her if she has Revelation. He doesn't know that she has it though, and he has to go pretty much all in to do that. So this is a pretty tricky play for him too.
This is the game of the match that Melissa and her team felt would be the toughest, potentially, within the match. They were certainly a little more bullish for after sideboard.
I've seen her do disgusting things against this deck in particular with Rock's Faithmender.
Yeah, Rock's Faithmender is a fun one.
And by fun, you mean crucifyingly awful.
We do have the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Yep.
So down it comes. So we still know that Zealous Conscripts is sitting there in Martell's hand, waiting for the 5th land. And now Tom Martell will go back into Thought mode.
Yeah, if he sends with like everything here, the blocks don't work out that well for him, because Thragtusk blocks a 5/5 champion, Centaur Healer blocks probably the 2/2 champion, or because I can't block the Knight of Infamy. So yeah, just the Falcon Wrath makes the most sense. The question for him now is, does he basically lose to the Revelation, or does he just content himself with like 5 or 6 damage?
Well, there's part 1 of your answer. Counter goes on the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
And right now that's lethal.
Yeah, so he can just wait.
I'll draw 4.
So now he knows he can't kill her. Luckily, if he sacks everything, he still has a token from the Traveler to protect against Wrath. My guess is he probably doesn't move in, because the clock is the same if he waits, and he wants to. If she Wraths, he can then sack everything. Oof, Azorius Charm's a big one for her though.
Yeah. Card we've been talking a lot about.
Yeah, she gets to slam a Thragtusk and a Charm next turn, which is goes a pretty long way to getting her back into the game.
So Azorius Charm, you can draw a card, you can give something lifelink. Most importantly, attacking or blocking creature can get sent to the top of the library.
Actually, she can even put the game out of reach with. I mean, she's going to use it in the mode of put a creature on top, but attacking and lifelink is actually a huge swing in this game too.
It's probably better in her deck than any other deck in the format.
Yeah. She can gain 8, 13 life next turn between playing the Thragtusk and doing that. Not that that's what she's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, if she somehow doesn't have to, if she does another one, she probably does do it that way, but the first one is almost assuredly going to slam the Aristocrat.
If we can keep things moving a little faster in the future, please.
Good.
I can tell you that game 1 is still going on between Ben Stark and Stephen Mann. Stephen Mann was pretty much in the box seat with Planeswalker action, but you know what Planar Cleansing does? All non-land permanents, and that's what Ben Stark dealt with using Planar Cleansing.
Because Ben doesn't need to win with anything but land permanents.
He did say a couple weeks ago that Nefali Dronyard is the most fun card printed in the last 4 years or whatever. Which shows you a thing or two about how Ben likes to play Magic.
Yeah, he must have been a charming kid.
Yeah. Let's just say he wasn't happy that we had played all beatdown decks for the last year. He's like, can I just get back to Dronyarding people? Which the answer apparently is yes.
So here we go. Thragtusk turning sideways into the red zone from Melissa.
So Wolf Run threatens 10 points of trample, so she's got to block with something reasonably large here.
I think he has to block with the champion here.
4 cards.
Yes.
Right?
Or
or double block with those, and that
Yeah.
that could potentially be one. But I think she's fine with just killing both those creatures.
Yeah, this is a great attack. I mean, it does exactly what she wants, which reduces the board complexity.
I played this.
I'm at.
Or not complexity, like the clutter. Just she basically doesn't want to die to something like a Zealous Conscripts or another Aristocrat, and the less creatures on the board, the more likely that it happens.
So Tom's setting up for the double block, but he's inching towards the Thragtusk. He's like, I really don't want to die, says the 9 of Infamy.
Martell's known for his decisiveness.
So is that the double block he aims for?
Any advantage to putting a creature on top of his deck here?
Well, the problem is with the Aristocrat in play, like, she'll just sack it, or he'll just sack it, so she really wants to save it for Aristocrat. See, this is really good for her. She just trades here and then plays another Thragtusk, has Azorius Charm up. She's at this point, the fact that Martell missed on the land for lethal last turn, I think Zealous Conscripts doesn't quite do it this turn.
Yeah, she can actually put her own her own Thragtusk back on top.
Yeah, I mean, that is a thing. That has been done before.
No effects.
So
I'll
no
let it die.
effects. It's a 2-for-1 trade. That's good, by the way, 2-for-1 trades, in case you're wondering. And we get tokens galore. You get a 3-3 for Melissa and a 1-1 flyer for Tom Martell.
Thragtusk.
Here comes another Thragtusk, as
I'm at
predicted.
9.
So more 5 life for Melissa.
Your turn.
And she passes
Sure,
with
both
that
at
Azorius
Correct.
Charm still available.
A land is still very good for Martell here. Doom Traveler not quite as much, unfortunately. Martell drew a Martell, a Doom Traveler, as it were.
Yeah, and you
have any cards?
if you're sitting in Melissa's seat, can you, from the way he flicks those cards, do you get a read on what that he's looking for something that's not there?
Yeah, I mean, this game is so close that she has to imagine he's got a ton of live draws here. I don't know if she specifically thinks he has a Zealous Conscripts and just needs any land. But when Martell doesn't do anything immediately, she might get the sense that he hasn't drawn, the card that kills her. Like, a second Aristocrat doesn't do it here, it looks like, with the Azorius Charm. And even the Zealous Conscripts, which is probably the worst possible thing he could have, doesn't, I don't think, kill her, but it does put her in obviously a much less good shape. At this point, I think that she's probably going to be able to win the game with Wolf Run next turn.
We're at crunch time here in Game 1, but Game 2 is already done in Gerry Thompson against Joel Larsson, and this time, Geist of St. Traft got it done for Joel. It's 1-1.
That's fine.
Oh, 1-1. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like their match might be over in a flash, as it were.
So, Martell goes back into arithmetic mode. Counting up.
That does seem where their deck lives a lot of the time, which I don't envy them the pleasure of playing it.
Abacus magic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great choice for a Pro Tour because of that, because the fact that you're always having to count means your opponents probably do too, and you're much more going to get it right because you played the deck.
Right, you're much more facile with the math, right? Like
Yeah.
you've done it a billion times, and you know what the implications of all the cards are, and you're not going to miss any hidden implications like on a Doom Traveler or something like that.
Right. And at this point, Martell can't, I don't think he's going to sack anything because I think it's pretty clear she might have an Azorius Charm here.
Now, do you think he sacrifices the Aristocrat, or does he want to redraw that?
He probably doesn't want to redraw it, but because she has a Dissipate, that's also devastating for him. Like, even if he had drawn the land here, she could have dissipated the Conscripts and not died to the Aristocrat. That would have been a little closer.
So, she says, yes, I'll take that damage.
So go to 4.
And in this yo-yo game of live totals, Melissa is back down to 4. So, here we go. Let's see what actually does happen with that Azorius Charm.
Part of the problem for Martell is if he sacks it and then conscripts the Thragtusk, he no longer has a way to sack the Thragtusk, which makes it not quite as good for him, though he might actually just be dead here. since she has a wolf run for 6 once she plays a land, and already 11 points of attackers. So, I mean, she doesn't know that he doesn't have anything. He could have a removal spell with 3 mana up, but I think if she goes for it, if she goes for it, she is going to win this one.
And so the removal spells that she's expecting to see from his deck are basically Orzhov Charm,
which might not be enough. Like if she pumps the Thragtusk, I guess he doesn't die if he has Orzhov Charm, but
King of the Drownyard, Nephalia Drownyard, Ben Stark leads 1-0 over Stephen Mann. That planar cleansing was a real game changer in their opener.
Yeah, that's actually why we didn't play Detention Spheres or Oblivion Rings, is because planar cleansing solves the Planeswalker problem, which is Esper's by far its biggest weakness.
So Melissa's sitting there with 3 cards in hand.
and we know that they are Dissipate, Supreme Verdict, and a Hollowed Flame.
The ever frightening Verdict is now at this point not really what she needs, but again I think either she goes for it and wins right now, or she doesn't go for it and has Dissipate for whatever Martell's next play is. So
she has the look of someone who's going to go for it here.
She's going to be very familiar with Tom Martell's list. He only has 2 Zealous Conscripts main deck. He has the full 4 Orzhov Charm. She's seen neither in the deck, so she has to expect that somewhere in there it's more likely, just math says it's more likely to be a charm.
Yeah, it looks like she's not going for it all out. Like he can actually live through this turn, but she's just playing it conservatively, figuring with the Dissipate she just can't lose if she doesn't, just die to an Orzhov Charm randomly.
So the Thragtusk comes in alone, leaving back a 3/3 Beast and a 3/3 Centaur Healer. And as is so often the way with quick white decks, once they're on the back foot, well, the defenses are a little meager. Although, there are 5 counters on that Champion of the Parish.
Hey, are you surprised at all by, when you guys had your version of the Wolfrun Rant list, did you have Snapcaster Mage, or?
No, we didn't have any Snapcasters. The deck doesn't have enough cheap spells to really support that, and
So
Augur is
without
actually
things like
better.
Fox Scour, okay.
Augur is actually one of the best cards in this format. Like, I was pretty sure I was going to play a deck with Augur in it a couple days before the Pro Tour, whether it was Esper or Blue Eye Red, just because it's so good against all the aggressive decks, and also good against like the non-aggressive decks.
Yeah, it's pretty good at tangling with an Ash Zealot.
Yeah. I mean, when they have Burning Tree Emissary into Lightning Bolt and have to say go, it's pretty amazing.
So Tom Martell doing a little dance with with the Traveller. It's probably getting a little bit dizzy, not just doomed.
Yeah. If he double blocks here, he lives on board. If he single blocks, he could be representing Orzhov Charm. Looks like he's just going to go for the single block and try to see if she goes for it to win. I mean, she could just go for it here.
And she could also do a small trample here, right? And keep
Seems
her
like
Dissipate mana open.
It seems like she's just going to go for a small amount of trample, keep Dissipate up.
Another match advancing rapidly is Eric Froehlich against Owen Turtenwald. They are now tied at 1 apiece. And I can tell you that we will be going there at the end of this game. We will head for game 3 of Eric Froehlich against Owen Turtenwald.
You're 2.
2.
And she takes 2 to play the Hallowed
So-
Fountain.
Yep. Your turn.
Yeah, Martell's going to need some kind of miracle here, I think, since she's just going to dissipate whatever he plays and just kill him on the next turn.
Yeah, he doesn't have any of those in his main
He
deck.
can't even play the Blood Crypt untapped, unfortunately.
Right, she could have attempted to kill him last turn, but
Right.
instead said, I'm going to just get you mostly dead
Yeah.
and keep myself alive with Dissipate. Tom packs it up. So 1-0 for Melissa DeTora over Tom Martell.
Can't wait to try out new standard and booster draft strategies straight from the Pro Tour? Log on to Magic Online and take part in special standard spotlight events, standard 2-person gold queues, and Gatecrash limited tournaments all weekend. For more information, visit mtgonline.com. So there we are, 1-0 to Melissa DeTora, and we are going to head across town to these two fine gentlemen, and you are going to see on the left of screen Mr. Eric Froehlich from Las Vegas, Nevada, up against Owen Turtenwald. A real clash of the Titans, two great players. There is your 2011 Player of the Year, Owen Turtenwald, and these two are tied at 1. So, what's the matchup here?
Well, actually, while these guys are shuffling up, let's take a look for a second at Thragtusk, which was a big card in that last match. It was really the card that kept Melissa in the game and then was able to close the game out for Melissa. You see it up on your screen right now. It's a rare creature that appeared in Magic 2013 core set. Such a big part of constructed Magic now, not only in terms of putting cards back into the set that had been maybe out of circulation, but creating new cards like Thragtusk. How has this card impacted how you approach Standard, Luis?
It's really big. I mean, the fact that, especially with Cavern of Souls, it's semi-immune to counterspells. Though Cavern has fallen out of favor recently, just because counterspells aren't as good as they used to be. But with Mana Leak gone and all that, but Thragtusk is really hard to get an advantage over Thragtusk. Any removal spell trades 2 for 1. Any sort of creature trade is almost inevitably going to be 2 for 1. Though Boros Reckoner is one of the few cards that actually fights against it pretty effectively, just for striking it down and all that. And the fact that it's so good against both aggro and control and mid-range means it's pretty much all over the place. There's like, 14 in the top 8. Half the decks are playing them. Ifro with just 1 main, 1 sideboard. But
you see the word ubiquitous on the slide.
Yeah.
We interviewed Owen Turtenwald yesterday, and one of the things he talked about was he actually talked about reading cards is a skill. And you see those words, leaves the battlefield, and that third clause, if you like, which is unusual. You think, well, when it dies, you get a 3/3. Well, no, it's just when it leaves, and that's how you get to guard against bounce spells like Unsummon. It's those kind of things that Owen said a lot of people just don't spot for quite a few weeks when a new set comes out.
Yeah, I have to imagine that clause was there because of Vapor Snag. When Thragtusk was printed, Delver was kind of rampaging over Standard.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and the fact that you could Cavern a Thragtusk to get around Mana Leak and Vapor Snag was a pretty big game. I mean, that is, if it was just when it dies, it would be a dramatically different card.
I'm going to make you really jealous right now, Luis.
Is that so?
Yeah, like the last day of the Magic Online Cube, but when its last go around, I had Tradewind Rider and Thragtusk going. I only bounced my own creatures.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet.
You people are evil. So, Owen Turtenwald against Eric Froehlich is what we're heading towards, game 3 of this one. And as I say, Owen Turtenwald, the 2011 Player of the Year, 174 lifetime pro points. He is a Platinum Pro with his 12 Grand Prix top 8s. And closest to a win, Grand Prix Columbus 2007. He was the runner-up there, and then behind Brad Nelson at Grand Prix Washington, D.C. in 2010. 5-1 in booster draft, 7-1, and then a couple of put-your-feet-up draws at the back end of the Swiss as he takes just a little centering breath, gets himself, feel the ground underneath your feet, and get really sort of sorted for game 3 here against the card-playing pro, Mr. Eric Froehlich. We know his dad will be watching. Hope you're enjoying it, Papa Fro. Great to hear from you on Twitter. So here we go. As Owen looks at his hand, Eric looks at his hand. Eric, largely the aggressor in this one. He has lots of quick starts with Burning Tree Emissaries, Gyre Sage, quick Loxodon Smiters, Boros Reckoners, heading towards Hell Rider. Owen, meanwhile, Jund. He really likes his Jund deck for this tournament. Answers to everything.
What did this matchup look like for you guys after sideboarding?
So yeah, me and Ifro played a bunch yesterday, and post-board it was better for Owen than pre-board because all Eric does is board in like an Aurelia and some 2 Garrick Relentless. But Owen gets a Tragic Slip and another Murder, which are both really huge.
All right, well, we're underway here.
Garrick was not a bad draw there.
So there is Gyre Sage.
Or the Gyro Sage, as we call it.
It's Gyro Sage. Come on.
Stop it. Gyre Sage, with a J, as it were, has evolved 1/2, and of course it generates bonus mana once it starts evolving.
Can Eric do anything really broken with that card?
Not after Ultimate Price, he can't.
I mean, his best starts are like turn 2 that, turn 3 Burning Tree Emissary, Flint Hoof board, and then it's just a 3/4 immediately, and then it can help cast Aurelias and Thundermaws. So it's not like he's powering out X spells, but it is a pretty large creature.
But really, he's just usually attacking with it as a 3/4 that turn then.
Yeah, that is generally his deal.
So Not super exciting. It's a replacement Gyre Sage on turn 3. Eric not able to use all his mana super efficiently.
I mean, have you ever eaten just 1 euro?
Ulamog, the infinite hero.
Oh, God. Third land for Owen Turtenwald on the right of your screen. He has Liliana of the Veil in hand, amongst many others.
Yeah, my guess is that Liliana's the play here just because getting it out as soon as you can is better. Though the fact that you can't +1 it does make it a little different. Like normally, you know, you'd be happy to just play a Planeswalker. But
Just remind people why you say you can't +1 it.
well, you can, but Eric has a bunch of Loxodon Smiters in his deck, and actually that happened in game 1, that a Loxodon Smiter jumped into play off the Liliana +1, and that is usually not good for you.
Yeah.
Where would you put Liliana right now in terms of the all-time ranking of constructed Planeswalkers?
She's pretty high up there. I mean, she's behind Mind Sculptor. She's probably behind Gideon. Gideon Juro, like the original Gideon, was so much better in Standard, but Liliana's actually insane in Eternal, so she's easily within the top couple.
We see Garrett Relentless come down for a beginning of a battle of the Planeswalkers. That's boarded in by Eric. He had 2 in the board. And you see there the little wolf that comes along with the 0 activation on that. So we go back to Turtenwald with just 1 counter left on his Liliana. That's how he got rid of the second Gyre Sage.
Yeah, Owen's in slightly a tough spot because if he +1s and Eric has a Smiter, it's really, really bad for him. But because he has a Rakdos Return that he's probably casting, he's just going to +1 it eventually, is my guess. Just Rakdos Return is how he's going to kill Garrick a lot of the time, that or Bonfire. The Bonfire is especially effective because it kills all the wolves and the Garrick at the same time.
So Owen continues to consider his options, and he's going to say, yeah, I tell you what, let's just go to discard. And what is it? It was a land from Froehlich, and of course a land from Owen. So Liliana is back up to 2. And now Owen looks at his Bonfire, Rakdos' Return, Murder, just really straightforward murder. And it is going to be Rakdos' Return.
So he's getting Eric's hand, putting Garrick down to 1. He's going to lose his Liliana in the process, but next turn he Bonfires away both the wolves and the Garrick, so it's slight advantage to Owen at this point.
And that was Boros Reckoner and Mizium Mortars hitting the graveyard on Froehlich's side of the board.
But now that Garrick's flipped, Eric has the option of just sacking the wolf and going to get like a Thundermaw.
Yeah, so the
if he draws a 5th land.
The -1 ability now, sacrifice, and then you go search your library, go and find something like a Thundermaw Hellkite.
And here, let's take a look at the other side
Yeah,
of the Veil Cursed.
that was not a bad draw either.
Flinthoof Boar. And in we send, and the wolf is going to take out Liliana. Flinthoof Boar comes crashing in.
And so he gets a Death Touch Wolf off the Garrick.
There we go. And we head back to Turtenwald. Life total still high, but starting to look at a pretty busy board on the other side.
Thragtusk's not a bad draw, but it looks like he wants to get rid of the Garrick before a Thundermaw comes out.
Yeah. Let's get that Planeswalker gone, please. So Eric just re-sleeves it the right way round for next time. Wolf goes. Death Touch Wolf goes. Flinthoof Boar does not, because although it reads 2/2, he has a mountain 3/3. Here's another one. Smash. 6 damage. Okay.
But, I mean, with a Thragtusk in hand, it looks like Owen is able to...
Yeah, I mean, Owen's basically stabilized the board at this point.
Right, he can just trade that over 2 turns for both of those.
Right, and with a Murder in hand, even if Ifro draws a Thundermaw or something like that, Owen's still slightly ahead.
Talk for a minute about Murder. Like, where did that card sit in people's like constructed playables for this event?
It's pretty good. The fact is the target removal in this format is not as good as it's been in the past. I mean, there's actually no Doomblade. So having Murder, like if you look at our Esper deck, for example, we have Ultimate Price and Devour Flesh and Dramatic Rescue, just because Dramatic Rescue is the only card in our colors that can just remove a creature from the board unconditionally.
I don't know why Markfield Liege is showing up on. I think someone was looking for Murder,
Yeah.
and
the reasons are murky, but we've gotten to Murder by now. So Murder is actually pretty good for the Jund deck. Like they have, double black available pretty easily. So it's not too much of a problem. Ooh, a Gerry here is a pretty good draw for Eric. I mean, leaving a Flinthoof boar back so you can block the beast token is pretty nice.
So we have yet another Planeswalker come down in this battle of Planeswalkers here in Game 3, remember, of the quarterfinal. Best of 5, so no one's going home at the end of this one. Elsewhere, Ben Stark leads Stephen Mann 1-0. Gerry Thompson and Joe Larsson of Sweden, they're tied at 1 each. And Melissa DeTora and Tom Martell, they're pretty early still in their Game 2, where Melissa, who we think's a reasonably heavy favourite in that match, leads 1-0. So there you see Owen.
So he drew an Olivia, which is obviously always a good card. And Eric's already down one of his mortars, so if Owen can untap with Olivia for a turn or two, it's going to be really tough for Ifro to get back into it.
How many ways does he have to deal with that after sideboard?
Just the mortars, basically.
Murder. Bye. In.
Yeah, jump with the wolf, just because you can just get it back next turn.
Yeah, and that's the conclusion Eric comes to as well.
Yeah. So Eric is certainly behind this game. But, I mean, he's got so many haste creatures that it's pretty easy for him to get back into the game. A Hell Rider or two later.
Yep.
Third Gyre Sage of the match, and as the result of the wolf, that will evolve the Gyre Sage into a 2/3.
That's pretty nice. Evolved creatures with token-making planeswalkers are recurring sources of large. That is an unfortunate Arbor Elf.
Yeah, well, it looks like, oh yeah, he's just slamming the Olivia, so now Ifro is like basically one turn to draw mortars, and if he does not, it's somewhat problematic. The Owen, he did play an Arbor Elf this turn, so now Garrett can just trade for Olivia, which seems a little ambitious, just because having an Olivia out is so huge. I mean, this does kill the Planeswalker. Garrett will die in the resulting fight.
Because so what you're saying is he's not leaving enough mana open to ping something this turn and grow his Olivia to 4/4.
Yeah, which was what I kind of expected him to do, but he chose to just slam an Arbor Elf instead. So now if Ifro draws like a good one, well, that was a stomping ground, which at least opens up the door to Thundermaw Hellkite.
There's a really noticeable difference in body language between Eric Froehlich on this table and Tom Martell against Melissa DeTora, where Tom Martell is a big presence in that game. Eric's kind of just flopping his cards and it's a land. He's very, very sort of laconic as he's playing his cards out. But
here's the Hell
here
Rider.
we go.
This is a pretty big game because it hits him to 11, and now if he has to trade for Hell Rider instead of blocking the Wolf, or just block the Wolf. And either way, he takes a ton more damage.
Yeah, and he's going to take it, 2 more damage at the start of the next attack phase, and is already taking 6 here.
Unless he chumps
7,
with
8,
the Arbor
9,
Elf. Yeah. So this is a tough spot.
We got a 5.
And this is the difficulty when you have these cards that can just come off the top and suddenly transform the game in the red zone, which is what's just happened for Eric Froehlich against Owen Turtenwald.
So I have to ask, do you think that this game is different if Olivia is able to live through a fight with Garrick?
Yeah, if Olivia lives through a fight with Garrick,
Even though Eric would still have Garrick in play.
He would, but not for very long. She then untaps and just attacks Garrick. So at this point, Ifro hasn't won yet, because if he attacks with both, the Hell Rider trades for the Beast, the Arbor Elf chumps the Gyro Sage, and he goes to 3.
Yep.
But Ifro's definitely ahead at this
We got a
point.
3.
So Owen is down to 3 this turn.
Oh, he drew Liliana
Sacrifice.
to kill the Sage. So now it's really anyone's game.
Go.
Eric's a million haste guys he can just draw to end the game here.
Yep.
All right, Domri Rod's a good one.
It's actually Domri Raid.
It certainly is,
Domri Raid.
as in massive. And it could be massive because there is Domri Ray before. Burning Tree Emissary, nothing to go with that. Liliana of the Veil is on the other side with 1 counter. And I can tell you where we're going next will be Joe Larsson against Gerry Thompson. And Joe Larsson has taken game 3 to lead 2-1. So we will be heading to get their game 4. You will see that potential elimination game for Gerry Thompson coming up at the conclusion of this game 3.
He's fight here, right?
Since Ifro missed on his draw step, presumably he fights, kills Liliana.
Yep.
That wasn't even a miss. It was still a creature, which is very relevant. All right, Owen looks like he bricked again on his draw step.
And Owen packs it in, and that is 2-1 to Eric Froehlich. He now needs one more of the next two to advance to the semi-finals.
Sure. You missed the pre-game meeting.
Wondering which guild is right for you? Take the guild quiz at guildsofravnica.com and then declare your allegiance on planeswalkerpoints.com to earn special badges and achievements. Go Azorius. Which these two gentlemen don't quite agree with, unfortunately.
No, we do not.
Can't be helped. Simic for Brian David Marshall and openly Demir, which probably makes me think you're actually not. But anyway.
And actually, I think these two guilds are fairly collaborative.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
All right, let's
But I
take
can't
you
confirm.
down. Let's take you down to Gerry Thompson against Joel Larsson, where Joel Larsson leads 2-1. There you see Gerry Thompson on the left of screen, Mr. Star City. Tremendous to see him in his first Pro Tour top 8. He's had a terrific career, 2 Grand Prix titles already to his name, 9 Grand Prix top 8, nearly 200 lifetime pro points. He's a gold level pro, and this is very definitely the crowning achievement of his Magic career to date. Then on the other side of the table, you have a very young man, only 21, Joel Larsson, 53 lifetime pro points. He's also a gold level pro, his first Pro Tour top 8 as well, and he's sort of been making a name for himself over the last couple of years on the European Grand Prix circuit, 3 Grand Prix top 8s in the last 18 months, Prague, Manchester, and in between, Pittsburgh in North America. So he's got a little bit of experience of the top 8 stage in this part of the world. So we're blue-white-red against blue-white-red. And Luis, what are the differences between the two? We're sort of calling this a quasi-mirror, but how close are these two decks? Gerry Thompson up against Joel Larsson.
So Gerry's biggest advantage is that he has Harvest Pyre over Blasphemous Act, because that gives him the combo potential to kill with Boros Reckoner out of nowhere. But I think what, especially in a best-of-5 series, gives Joel the edge is the 2 Thundermaw Hellkites in particular in the sideboard, with Geist also not being bad, Geist of St. Traft.
Well, and the Geist of St. Traft has been a big card for him in terms of taking this 2-game-to-1 advantage. I just want to talk for a second about like that mentality. You've been down in a Pro Tour top 8. What does Gerry have to think about or do here? Does he have to play any differently? Does he have to? Do you find yourself that you have to maybe gamble a little bit more or gamble a little bit less on your decisions?
I certainly don't think you should play differently. Assuming you're playing well to begin with, which Gerry assuredly
Obviously is, yeah.
Then he should just keep doing what he's doing and see how it goes. I think, at least for me, I can't speak to everyone's experiences. When I was down 0-2 against Kenny Oberg, when he was playing the Tezzeret, Chalice of the Void Trinisphere deck against me playing Elves in Berlin.
I would like to point out that at that moment, I still said you were going to win that tournament.
Appreciate the vote of confidence, but at that point, I tested the deck and gone, 1-9 the day before. I just hoped that, basically just took what was coming.
Okay, speaking of what's coming, we have an Augur of Bolus.
Looks like a miss, though.
Nothing coming.
Yeah.
Underway. Draw a card off Azorius Charm from Gerry Thompson on the left of your screen. By the way, Ben Stark now leads 2-0 over Stephen Mann. There was an empty board, and Nephalia Drownyard got the job done for Ben S. So he leads 2-0 over the debutant Stephen Mann.
Let's take a look at Gerry Thompson's hand here.
I'd like to draw some more, says Gerry.
Yeah, he hit his land drop on turn 3 by cycling Azorius Charm, the ever-present Azorius Charm here.
And when we talk about cycling, we're obviously talking about a mechanic that goes, way back to like Urza Saga, Saga block.
So basically,
you'd pay 2 to take a card from your hand, discard it, and draw a card. You weren't casting a spell though as an ability, but it's become jargon for anything.
Any card that draws 1 card is like cycling, and with no other effect.
So I can tell you that Tom Martell has evened things up against Melissa DeTora. It was very quick game 2 in the end because Melissa mulliganed to 5, and then having not got enough of any cards, got far too many land, and Tom Martell, of course, well positioned to take advantage of that. As we see Boros Reckoner here for Joel Larsson added to his Augur of Bolus, and Augur of Bolus on the other side for Gerry Thompson.
A third Azorius Charm for him.
Yeah, Augur's finding Azorius Charm or Think Twice actually helps your land count and helps you hit land drops, which is part of the reason they're so good.
Let's take a look at what we've got to work with on the other side of the table for Joel Larsson.
So charms aplenty there as well, and a searing spear to go with a couple of land. He's sending in his Boros Reckoner.
If Gerry blocks here, Joel could just gain infinite life.
Yeah, he could.
I just want to point out that infinite life is in play.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also think that if Gerry just untaps and wraths, that, well, he didn't draw the land. If he had, then he could almost lose the game on the spot to Indestructible Boros Charm.
Right.
But he's probably going to have to just cast a Reckoner here, and then, yeah, he might get infinite lifed out here. Though that isn't necessarily a win. Gerry boards in Jace the Memory Adepts. And can actually just deck Joel, and Joel's aware of that. So it's likely that Joel doesn't want to go for infinite life when he can, just because of that. I mean, he still might, but it's not as much of a windmill slam as it would be in like game 1.
Yeah, Gerry has...
While I appreciate your tactical approach to that, I want to see him gain infinite life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all do.
Yeah, Gerry has 3 Jace Memory Adept in his sideboard. There's 1 in Joe Larsson's sideboard.
In fact, I'd be pretty happy with him gaining infinite life and Gerry winning and forcing a game 5.
Yeah, that would also be pretty sweet. Joel remarking that seeing if Gerry hit a land, because at this point it's pretty clear that Jerry's looking for those.
And he did.
He hit a Steam Bench, which is, you know, within the range of the cards he wanted to draw.
You see a fistful of cards for Gerry.
Yeah, I think he's in a tough spot here. I think almost no matter which way Joel plays it, Boros Charm's going to be incredibly big this game.
So another part of the Boros team, this time it's the Reckoner, goes once more into the red zone. From the right, that's Joe Larsson. He drew Geist of St. Traft.
And because of Boros Charm, he can actually just slam the Geist, though Gerry does have Essence Scatter. But if he slams the Geist and then has Boros Charm up for Supreme Verdict, it's pretty bad. I imagine Gerry would Essence Scatter the Geist.
Yep.
Although, maybe not, though. If he's chumping here, he might want to just bank on Supreme Verdict, but Joel has the trump for that, and could be looking at a quick game.
Augur of Bolus gets in the way of the Reckoner. It's a Sacred Foundry tapped, and Joel passes the turn with 4 mana up.
Let's take a look at Boros Charm there.
It's quite the card.
It is so good.
4 straight to the face. Or how about we're all indestructible? Or, well, yeah, actually, just did a double strike. Do you see much of the double strike?
Not as much, because the other 2 modes actually copy it a lot of ways.
Sure.
Like, dealing 4 is like giving a 4-power guy double strike, and Indestructible is like saving your guy in combat. But Melissa actually lost a game, or rather, she won the game, but she almost lost because of a double strike earlier in the tournament.
So we've seen Mizium orders.
Yeah, Joel could go for it here, but Gerry has a Dispel. Right,
So, Boros Charm.
Gerry almost assuredly has to Dispel here. He's just going to take way too much damage.
There it is. There's the Dispel. So counter target instant. Boros Charm, of course, is instant. So that's gone. Mizium Mortis is gone. Boros Reckoner is gone. And it's just an Augur of Bolus. How costly do you think all those Azorius Charms in Gerry Thompson's graveyard can be? The fact that he's had to just kind of cycle his way through them.
They've gotten him into this game.
Yeah, yeah. Without them, you would have missed land drops. But
They're essential. I understand.
But yeah, you're definitely right that later in the game, not having a key Azorius Charm is a pretty big deal. Though Jerry's in a much better position now than he was a turn ago, because the Boros Charm got baited out by the Mortars plus Dispel. So the Wrath here presumably should work.
And those Azorius Charms, let's be fair, they're still very available to Gerry.
Yeah.
So he's playing, 4 Snapcaster Mages.
And there is the Supreme Verdict. It works. Joe Larsson lays land number 7.
3
he will
Snapcaster
use
Mages.
3 of them for Boros Reckoner.
Reckoner was definitely a good draw, because without it, he was kind of out of threats. But this is still a close game, but Gerry does have a lot of cards in his hand.
Let's take a look.
Most of them Reckoners and Snapcasters.
This card has just dominated this tournament. It's been great for Gerry. He even had 2 of them in one of his draft decks.
Yeah, his second draft deck, he showed me it, and I saw the 2 Reckoners. I'm like, well, that's a pretty big deal.
Reckoner apiece.
Reckoners do trade with each other pretty effectively. Ooh, Restoration Angel is also a pretty nice one.
Reckoner. I nearly killed her.
And you reckon that was funny?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to me.
You know, that's what I shoot for, and I usually succeed.
I can appreciate that.
How did it come to this, that I'm the straight man? Deary me. Boros Reckoner gets in the way, and here's Restoration Angel.
Gerry chose not to first strike. Then Joel gets to play Angel to save his Reckoner, but then Gerry gets to Essence Scatter the Angel, and then the 3 damage goes on the Reckoner. Gerry goes to 5. With Joel a Searing Spear in hand, which makes this game very, very close.
Doesn't it just?
Yeah, Jerry's up a ton on cards and down a ton on life.
Isn't that how Magic works classically?
Yeah, that is generally the exchange you make.
Sounds
from
strangely familiar.
Necropotence onwards. Worst card in Ice Age.
Yeah.
Gerry passes the turn. Restoration Angel and Searing Spear for Joel, who passes back.
So theoretically, the tools he needs, the numbers he needs to kill Gerry, but obviously with a handful of cards, that's not very easy.
I mean, Jerry's wanted to leave Snapcaster Essence Scatter up here instead of playing Reckoner, but it's pretty hard to imagine. Yeah, he has to play something here. He has too many cards in hand.
So that Restoration Angel duly appears at the end of Joel's turn and begins the process of turning Joel's 16 into rather a lot less, ideally.
Yeah, it looks like this is going to get Essence Scattered.
Via the Snapcaster Mage into the replay.
Joel draws a Searing Spear Snapcaster. It is over, but draws a Jace the Memory up.
It does indeed. And now Gerry's board, 5 damage a turn, sitting there right now. So,
yeah, Jace is basically a renewed faith here. He gains 5 life and he draws a card. In the classic scramble for dice.
reminder that Ben Stark leads Stephen Mann 2-0.
Two young players, too cool to bring dice to the table.
Yeah.
Melissa and Tom Martell at 1-1. Eric Froehlich leads Owen Turtenwald 2-1.
Well, that's a Boros charm. Jeez.
So, in his hand, he holds 7 damage.
Yep, he's 1 mana short of playing it all.
Hear the flick of the cards from Joe.
What does Gerry need?
Well, he has a Dispel in his graveyard, and he can either Angel or Snapcaster. So...
Well, we have our first semi-finalist, Eric Froehlich. He bought a zoo. He took it to the table, and he unleashed it on Owen Turtenwald and wins 3 games to 1.
Joel just won the game, I think. He drew a negate for Jerry's Dispel.
Oh, so here we go. Boros Charm. Says Joe, how many cards?
And Joel pretty much knows it at this point.
You could tell he's sort of sat up in his chair.
He's like, well, that was a draw.
This is about to be Joe Larsson through to the semifinals. Negate. That's it. Joe Larsson is through to the semifinals. The Swede advances past Gerry Thompson by 3 games to 1.
That negate was a sweet draw, right?
I think we're going to try to get ourselves a sideline interview here with Joel Larsson. Talk about that matchup and how he approached the semi-mirror.
Ultra Pro is the leading manufacturer of trading card game sleeves and deck boxes. If you're looking for official Gatecrash portfolios, card storage boxes, deck boxes, sleeves, and playmats, Ultra Pro has you covered. For more information, visit wizards.com/magic merchandise. So, in the space of just a couple of minutes, guys, we have 2 semi-finalists. We have Eric Froehlich 3-1 over Ben Stark, over Owen Turtenwald, and then we have, just seeing there, Joel Larsson 3-1 over Gerry Thompson. LSV, a surprise in either of those?
I mean, I think that both of those matches were very close. Gerry did say Joel was slightly favored, or even reasonably favored, just based on Thundermaw. Right. And then that last game, Gerry spending his first couple turns cycling Azorius Charms and Joel attacking with Reckoner is really what ended up mattering, because at the end Joel was able to just piece together enough burn plus a counterspell to finish Gerry.
Right, and we just saw Boros Charm being an unbelievable, giving you unbelievable reach in that deck.
Yeah.
You know, we saw situations where it would have saved his creatures from Supreme Verdict. We also saw, just like he's like, oh, look, it's 4 to your head. It's a 5th of your life total.
There are a lot of ways for Gerry to lose to Boros Charm that game. He managed to maneuver around most of them, but the last mode ended up getting him.
The last Boros Charm's the one that gets you.
Yeah.
So, of those, you're looking, they're on opposite sides of the brackets. So Eric Froehlich will play the winner of Melissa DeTora or Tom Martell. Meanwhile, Joel Larsson will wait for after lunch for Ben Stark or Stephen Mann. So we're going to take you down to the floor. Here is the winning Swede going into the semi-finals with Rashad Miller. Here's Joel Larsson.
Hi, this is Rashad Miller, and I am here with semi-finalist Joel Larsson. Now, you're playing against Gerry Thompson in a quasi-mirror match. Yeah. Exactly how did you approach the mirror match?
Well, so it's a mirror match, but there's some cards in our decks which is really different because he goes more for this cantric-based Sphinx Revelation deck, and I play 4 Boros Charm, so I'm more like a burn kind of control deck. So when I board in 4 guys into Funimal Hellkites, you know, I can get so aggressive against this deck, and it doesn't have very many good ways to answer these threats. So I thought the matchup was great after sideboard. We tested it some last night, and yeah, now I went 3-0, so after sideboard. So
okay, so we'd like to know, who did you test with coming up to this event?
I tested with the Swedes, you know, the ones who
name some names.
Elias Watzfeldt, Dennis Rashid, Lunda Londos, Ken Oberg, Lovianse, let's see, Bertil Alfgren. I don't think I've missed anybody. Hope not.
Well, I'm sure that they know that you appreciate all their testing. So this is Joel Larsson. Joel Larsson representing Simic. Back to the booth.
All right, thanks, Rashad. Thanks for that. So where we're going to head is to the Ben Stark match. Ben Stark is currently 2-0 up over Stephen Mann. He is trying to tie up a semi-final place against Joel Larsson, and Stephen Mann in a deep, deep hole. Ben Stark, not someone to generally let people climb out of deep, deep holes.
No, he generally likes to keep drowning them once he's got him there.
Okay, and a reference to the Nephalia Drown Yard. So yeah, I know that you wanted to have a look at that Boros Charm, BDM, because it is such an explosive card and just really key.
Yeah, we saw that card just completely, you know, give Joel complete different plans of attack depending on what was going to happen and what cards Gerry drew. I mean, it's 3 powerful options for an aggressive deck, it says there, but 3 powerful options for a control deck as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the PV actually described it really well in one of his preview articles, which was, it's great when you have a ton of creatures out, and it's great when you have no creatures out. Because when you have a ton of creatures out, making your team indestructible is all you really want. When you have no creatures out, you mostly want to just peel burn, and Boros Charm dealing 4 is a lot.
Right. And as you can see there, it says received near universal acclaim upon release, obviously talking about PV's preview article.
Yeah.
I can tell you that things are not as bleak as they appear for Stephen Mann, because we can see on the monitors the players are shuffling, which means they're between games, and that means they are between games 3 and 4. And if you can count, that means you know that Stephen Mann is on the scoreboard, and he is 2-1 behind now. Still under the gun, but now he's off the mark. And so Ben Stark leads by 2-1, and you'll see Game 4 here. I can also tell you that you will see Game 4 of Melissa DeTora against Tom Martell, where there may be an upset in the offing, because Tom Martell leads that matchup. Looked difficult, but he leads by 2-1. You'll see their Game 4 next. But right now, Ben Stark against Stephen Mann.
Do we have an idea of what Stephen Mann? What happened in Game 3? How did he come out of the gates? What were his cards? Because
Liliana went ultimate.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, Liliana is like pretty much the best card against Esper, because it comes down so quickly and punishes both your hand and just ultimate. Obviously, pretty much wraps up the game.
Describe what happens when Liliana gets angry.
Well, when she gets angry, you usually end up picking up a lot of cards and putting them in your graveyard, and that is not generally good for Esper, which needs 15 lands out to win the game.
You basically factor fiction your permanents.
Yeah, and he's also even fast enough to get around Planar Cleansing. Like, Garrick is really, really powerful, but if you go Garrick, make a beast, Esper can much of the time just Planar Cleansing it away. But Liliana, not only does it not give you the time, it also makes it so it's harder to hit your land drops. And Jund is usually able to operate by just playing cards still while Liliana's out.
Right. If you're holding on to your Planar Cleansing, you're probably discarding lands, and if you're discarding your spells, and you know, it's difficult to get to that critical mass of 6 and a Planar Cleansing.
Summary: Liliana's not very fair.
No. I mean,
When
and
she
a, and
gets nasty.
a card that's played in all formats that we've seen all the way back to Legacy.
All right, we are underway here in Game 4. Ben Stark on the left, Stephen Mann on the right, and it is Stephen Mann who begins with, I thought this was standard, it's a Deathrite Shaman on turn 1. It's for Stephen Mann.
Yeah, when we tested, we kind of expected him to take out Nighthawks for Deathrite Shamans, because they both kind of deal 2 damage unblockable, and Deathrite also messes with Snapcaster Mage, which is a pretty big deal.
So the Deathrite Shamans are not a main deck card for Stephen Mann's Jund deck. He has those in his sideboard. He's brought those in, and as you say, he probably took out the Vampire Nighthawks to make room for them.
Yeah, I mean, they're both, again, somewhat in the same role, but Deathrite's also cheaper to play, and it has the utility of messing with Snapcasters. Also Think Twice, both of which are pretty key, which is why he might not attack here, because he doesn't want Ben to end of... Yeah, he didn't attack because of end of turn Think Twice or Azorius Charm. He wanted to keep the Deathrite activation up.
Ben Stark lays Godless Shrine tapped, so he will stay at 20 life, husbanding his life total very carefully. No need for that to come into play untapped. And
Let's take a look at Ben's hand.
well, there's a lot of land there, to be fair. And then a clear the board with Supreme Verdict, and a how about I have a better hand next time, Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, he kept a hand of like 5 lands, Verdict, Revelation, which is a reasonable hand on the play, because Revelation really is that good.
And what do we have on the other side of the table? What's Stephen Mann working with? Garrick, Primal Hunter, Olivia Voldaren, Thragtusk.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff. He might not want to play Olivia here just because he's kind of overextended into Verdict at this point. But if he doesn't, he's not really doing anything for a few turns. Plus, he gets to follow up Olivia with Garrick, even if something does happen. Though, he does have the green. So
again, it's like you've got this double Deathrite that are just sitting there, which is kind of curious.
They've done literally nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and now they start to go to work.
Yep.
I mean, when it's
Yeah.
So the Azorius Charm will leave Ben Stark's graveyard. And as a result, Stephen Mann will gain himself 2 life.
It does 2 damage to...
Oh, the other way around. Sorry, yeah. It's creature, you gain 2.
So the pace of this game isn't too bad for Ben, but the fact that he doesn't have a counter for Garrick, if Steven just slams a Garrick here, Ben's actually in quite a bit of trouble. It's kind of hard to do that into all the untapped mana and no spells played, though.
But you have to assume that there's... You always assume that the untapped islands are bad for you. Or Glacial Fortresses in this case.
Yeah, and also Ben leading Glacial Fortress 3 black-white lands indicates that he might not have more lands in hand, which means he would have a lot of spells, which Steven probably is paying attention to.
2 quarterfinals done, 2 quarterfinals remain. Joe Larsson through 3-1 over Gerry Thompson. Eric Froehlich through 3-1 over Owen Turtenwald. Tom Martell leads Melissa DeTora by 2-1. You'll see their game 4 next. And here, Ben Stark leads Stephen Mann by 2-1.
Interesting that both the Sphinx's Revelation decks are still playing. Like the big ones, not the aggressive ones.
Shockingly.
Yeah. So it looks like not a Garrick this turn.
Yeah, he's going to go with Olivia instead.
He's trying to incite the Wrath so he can then play Garrick. So Ben really wants to find a Planar Cleansing or a Duress or a Negate.
Well, Ben has found a Jace Memory Adept.
Which isn't too bad, but it's kind of risky to play at this turn.
Has a couple of those in his sideboard.
Cleans things up with a Supreme Verdict.
And now Steven knows that Ben only has 1 Negate in his deck. So it's going to be pretty hard to
bluff.
to bluff. Like, he's got to just run the Garrick here because it's the highest payoff card in his hand by a lot.
Right.
I mean, if he wants, he can play a Thragtusk. He knows that will resolve.
I like to leave it there. Sure.
Shaman again.
All right, so he's taking the safe route of just making sure the Thragtusk happens.
So there is Thragtusk come down for Stephen. That's his first sort of genuine threat of the game, I guess, now that it's sitting there unmolested by the Supreme Verdict that's gone away for Stark. Although all that mana just ticking up and ticking up.
Yeah, Ben's looking to Revelation this turn for sure.
He's about to get on the Sphinx train.
Yeah, and so Steven may, you know, if he senses that, he might just want to play Garrick to disrupt his plans, even if Ben has a counter. But it's really going to be up to him. I don't know what conclusions he came to when he tested the matchup. Looks like he's Garricking, though.
Indeed. Down comes the Planeswalker.
You got a Garrick.
You got a Garrick, says Ben.
If he's worried about planar cleansing, he might just cash in the Garrick for 5 cards. Seems like the most likely thing. It's kind of, at least for me, it's hard to resist drawing 5 under pretty much any circumstances, to be fair.
Right.
Yeah, minus
super
3.
harmonized here.
Yeah. Because if he makes a beast and then Ben goes Revelation for 4 on top planar cleansing, Steve's in a pretty big hole. So
Yeah,
And he's only got you know, what, 2 cards in hand. So I mean, you know, restocking a hand seems fantastic actually.
yeah, it's a. I mean, the only disadvantage is that it keeps the Garrick off the board, and that's a really troublesome permanent for Ben. Like, you start, now he's fighting the Revelation Wars, kind of. But the risk of getting it planar cleansing just got to be in his mind right now. That's like the number one thing he's going to be thinking about.
And also, he knows that the Sphinx's Revelation coming sooner or later from Ben, and this is a way to say, well, in a sense, I counter your first Sphinx's Revelation with one of my own via the Garrick Primal Hunter.
Beast's Revelation, as it were.
Yeah.
-3.
Yep.
So there we go.
You got 5 cards.
-3.
Wow, did you hear the envy in Ben Stark's voice? You
Luckily-
have 5 cards.
Luckily, he's about to counter with 4 of his own. Though he drew a duress, which is a pretty big deal.
So Stephen, looking at a lot more options now that he's sent away his Garrick Primal Hunter. Does have virtually a full opening hand again. And there is the duress. Old style duress.
Very
Ben says,
good choice.
you have, you have a look at
You
my
have to look
hand.
at new style duress
Yeah.
on the graphic, but just pay attention to the one on the board.
Unsurprisingly, Ben let this resolve. With 2 Revelations, he'd rather Steve just have to take one than get the option of whatever he draws into.
Right. And, you know, always the chance your opponent takes the Jace somehow.
Yeah, I don't think that's an incredibly large chance. With this many lands in play, Revelation is certainly the danger card.
Points at the plains.
Yeah. Luckily, he cannot take that, so he's saved from having the option.
Of that embarrassment, yeah.
Yeah, and Ben's not too close to killing him with Jace here, though. That does eventually end a lot of games. He's Ben's life total is actually fairly pressured, with the death rate getting to ping for an additional 2 this turn.
Yeah.
Take Revelation. You got them written down? What's up? Do you have them? Yeah.
He does take the Sphinx's Revelation.
Good.
Ben goes to 16, virtually 14.
Cards aplenty go to Ben Stark's hand.
And
See.
we'll give let's take a look at what Stephen Mann drew while we wait to see. Our floor people can catch up to the fistful of cards that Ben's got to work with.
Luckily, control decks don't play not very many one-ups, so it's not hard to figure it
Yeah,
out.
like 6 cards there. 5.
So you see the 5 cards on the right of your screen that belong to Stephen Mann right now. Ben Stark is currently working with 8.
And that's all thanks to Sphinx's Revelation.
So gorgeous. 2 of the best things in Magic. All on 1 card. I'm in love.
Yeah, when you draw 7 cards, all you want is enough life to use the cards. So the 7 life is like drawing an additional 3 or 4 cards or whatever, just in terms of the time it buys you.
Glorious thing. So Ben, 4 mana, says, I'd like the board clear, please, with Supreme Verdict. So Stephen has something to do with his 1 mana.
Minus that Supreme Verdict. There we go.
So Ben's priority is really getting Witchbane Orb down because it stops Slaughter Games, Rakdos Return, Duress, even Liliana's Ultimate and her -2. So it's a really, really big deal.
So Witchbane Orb meaning that Ben would be hexproof. So no targeting.
He can still target himself with, I guess, Drownyard or Jace.
And he does take that opportunity to play the Witchbane Orb.
Yeah, and like we kind of expected, no Jund deck has a single way to remove the Witchbane Orb just because it's like a forecasting cost artifact. It's kind of weird.
Right. The only deck I really saw that had a way to deal with it was Conley's black deck, which had a Rakdos Charm in the sideboard.
Yeah, he did have the 1 Rakdos Charm for value.
Just remind viewers at home why the 4 mana is so critical to meaning it can't be got, essentially.
Oh, because of Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay, which all the Jund decks play, which Stephen Mann will have cited out here, most likely just because we don't even have Detention Sphere, but if Abrupt Decay could kill Witchbane Orb, he would have it in his deck.
Another Thragtusk comes down for Stephen Mann. So plenty of beast action going on.
That looked like another...
another Sphinx Revelation gives Ben a lot of good options here. Angel of Serenity is very good. Just casting a Giant Revelation is good. Even casting like Jason Azorius Charm is pretty decent. Ben is an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah. I mean, which is not to say, Steven's hand is quite sturdy here. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, this game is still very, very close. Ben just has a lot of good plays this turn. Steven having Dreadbore in hand makes the Angel Serenity, which it looks like Ben's playing, not quite as devastating as it would be otherwise.
So that is what comes down. An Angel of Serenity will get rid of Beast.
Interestingly, he does not choose to remove the Thragtusk.
No, he's worried about it getting killed and Steven getting his Thragtusk back, which rightfully so. Especially
great read by Ben there.
Yeah, if the Angel doesn't get killed, it pretty much blanks the Thragtusk. Steven has a number of good options here. He can actually just attack with Thragtusk, then play Olivia and shoot the Angel if he really wants to.
You see that crucial 6th point of toughness on the Angel of Serenity.
Yeah, the card is not bad.
I hate to think what card you'd say was really good.
Well, see, when I evaluate cards, I look at the casting cost, and I decide the bigger the better, so... I wanted one of these in our main deck, but I was told I was not allowed to.
I heard you guys also had a fight about the number of Drown Yards.
Yeah, Ben actually played 4, and a number of us played 3 and 1 Ghost Quarter.
Yeah.
I think in this top 8, Ben would rather have the Ghost Quarter, but in the mirror, Drown Yard is better.
And Ben's reasoning was pretty sound. He's like, I really, really like Drown Yard.
Yeah, it's his favorite card, so...
There is the Dreadbore for the Angel of Serenity, but of course the token doesn't get to come back. Thragtusk now gets met by Azorius Charm.
Yeah, Ben doesn't care about the Beast as much as just not taking 5, because next turn he's going to cast a Giant Sphinx's Revelation, and he wants to make sure that Steven can't kill him before that happens.
Yeah, the issue of Steven being up at 30 and now 35 life is really not what's going on here at all, is it?
No, definitely not. The drawing of Supreme Verdict was pretty good there. Ben can like Supreme Verdict plus Jace and have it not die to the 1 remaining Beast token, or you can just play an enormous Sphinx Revelation.
It's pretty interesting that this is already the 3rd Supreme Verdict of this game for Ben, and he's starting to grind through these, and Steven's still not going away.
No, Thragtusk gives you a lot of staying power.
Yeah, creatures have learned how to deal with the Wrath of God effects. Yeah. They've got a bunker.
Yeah.
A reminder that you are not missing anything in the Melissa DeTora Tom Martell match. You will see their game 4 at the conclusion of this game as Jace, Memory Adept, comes down for Ben Stark.
It's almost like you've played this deck before, Luis.
Yeah. And he mills the Thragtusk he put on top with Charm with Jace. Ben's in a good spot because he has a Witchbane Orb out, so he can tap out, leaving just the Revelation in hand, knowing it's not going anywhere.
Right, no Slaughter Games is your nightmare here, right?
Or Rakdos Return, killing the Jace and making it discard. Actually, Rakdos Return would just be lethal, but luckily for Ben, he does not have to worry about such trivial matters.
Thanks, Witchbane Orb.
Yeah, Witchbane Orb is...
a card that's really come up since it was released originally in Innistrad.
Yeah.
But you didn't see a lot of play early on, and...
Yeah, we mostly have it in our sideboard for the Curses deck, but it has additional utility against Jund.
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Because that Hexproof line is almost like secondary. Like, the flavor of it is that it deals with curses.
Yeah.
It looks like Olivia. Oh no, Huntmaster.
So Jace Memory Adept goes down to 2 loyalty.
Yeah, and Steve attacking Jace was, I think, right, but it's really good for Ben because
2 damage.
Ben just has
to
to.
Me with a Witchbane Orb out, right?
He's now verifying that he can't take 2, but because of Huntmaster.
This can't
because of
target me
Witchbane Orb.
if the 2 damage with a Witchbane Orb out, correct?
That's correct.
Obviously, then it can't target Jace either or anything like that.
That's correct.
Just making sure. It's like 95%, but before I do something retarded, right? Okay.
So good plan by Ben just to see what's going on and make sure that he knows what's happening with the fact of Witchbane Orb down means he can't take that 2 damage to do with Ravager of the Fells, and he's going to be safe.
Yeah, getting to draw a card with Jace and Wrath here is pretty nice.
Safe.
Well, Wrath last turn. Getting to draw a card with Jace and Revelation here is pretty nice.
2 cards in hand.
Yeah.
12, 15, 18.
Those 2 cards in hand we can see are within Cemetery and Olivia Valdarn.
The card Ben is worried about right now is Kessig Wolfrun. He's counting to make sure he doesn't die. Because if he drew an Angel of Serenity, which I think he may have, then he can play it to clear the board. No, he drew an Azorius Charm.
Which is also fine against
Yeah, I mean,
Kessig Wolfrun.
so now Ben can like pass the turn, not really worry about the attackers. If Steven has a Wolfrun, he Azorius Charms whoever gets targeted. If not, he just casts a Giant Revelation
I
to
don't know, I didn't
presumably
bother
put
to
himself in a good
37.
spot.
No, I know we want to play correctly, obviously.
So Nephalia Drownyard comes down.
It's opponent.
Okay.
Making sure Steven doesn't have to target himself. Let's see if we can get a look at Nephalia Drownyard here.
Because it's potentially going to be very relevant sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Steven doesn't even have lethal this turn, so he's probably going to settle on killing Jace with at least one of his creatures, possibly the 2 3+ power guys just to play around Azorius Charm.
So there it is. You see exactly what Ben Stark is proposing to do. It's a very pretty card, but not when it's on the other side of the table from you. Situations like this.
So it's essentially 4 mana, mill 3.
Yeah, what's so insane about it is it taps for mana and it wins the game. The fact that it can do both those things very effectively is pretty big.
And something you talked about before with Kessig Wolfrun, it's a land also that in that mid to late game comes into play untapped.
Yeah.
Right, which is a big deal in these decks, which have a ton of shock lands.
Yeah, so Steven does send the 2 guys at Jace to play around Azorius Charm, which is exactly what Ben wants, because now Ben gets a Revelation for like 8. And, I mean, he could still brick, but it's not... I mean, he's gone through a lot of Revelations at this point, so he's not going to get to refresh too many more of those.
Does he leave his Snapcaster Mages in?
No, we had settled on taking those out because of Deathrite Shaman. Also, we take out a lot of the cheap removal, so once you end up doing that, it's not Snapcaster becomes not that great.
Ben organizing his mana. There's a lot of mana.
Well, you have to set aside little pockets of Drownyard mana, right?
Yeah, Steven's got to be nervous about Ben counting his lands like that in an ominous fashion.
You can see why Magic's confusing to people, though, can't you? Because you've got Ben Stark at 9, Stephen Mann at 37. They've both got lots of mana. Stephen Mann's got 3 really good creatures on the board, and we're all going, oh, this is so bad for Stephen.
Ben's got him right where he wants him.
Yeah. And why is that? Oh, it's the 13th land that's so crucial.
Yeah, I mean...
Welcome to Magic, boys and girls. It's why we love it so much.
There's no better mechanic in Magic than making your land drops.
Yeah, that is...
Touche, that's very true. All right, so Ben draws, his next new hand of the game.
Some significant portion of his deck.
Yeah, just all think twices, but the crucial Angel of Serenity, which lets him wipe the board here.
And I think another Drownyard.
Yeah, the Drownyard is not irrelevant, though. He's a few turns away from going into full Drownyard mode. He has to make sure he just doesn't die by accident.
Right, he just basically wants to completely attrition all the threats and all the action on the other side of the table before he starts doing that. And then it's just a really quick way to close out the game.
We're in the Angel Loop now, which is...
oh, wow.
Yeah, so just explain what you mean by that, because we've seen an Angel of Serenity go under his Angel of Serenity. So what's going on there?
Basically, if Steven can kill the Angel Serenity, Ben then gets the other Angel Serenity back from his graveyard to his hand, or now exiled zone to his hand. Though Olivia does get around that, and Steven does have an Olivia there because it can actually just steal the Angel and then never attack with it into Azorius Charm, forcing Ben to find his 4th Supreme Verdict, or in this case, he does have a Planar Cleansing, though it would destroy his Witchbane Orb, which is a bit of a nombo. One we were aware of, but the cards are both so good that we felt it was worth it.
Here are the cards in Ben's hand.
2 Azorius Charm, 2 Think Twice, Counterspell with Dissipate, Planar Cleansing, Let's Start All Over Again, and another Nephalia Drownyard.
Ben has to dissipate.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it can just threaten to steal the Angel and put Ben in an actual losing spot means, like, I would be really surprised if he didn't dissipate it.
Talked earlier on about the body language styles of Tom Martell at table 1, Eric Froehlich at table 2. Look how just completely still, basically, Stephen Mann is when he's just waiting to see what Ben Stark does. He's giving nothing away, and watched a lot of him down the stretch in the Swiss. He was super tough to read for opponents. He just sat there and stared you down and went, you do what you want to do, I'll do what I want to do. I'm probably going to win.
Ben did let that resolve.
Interesting. That's
1 damage. Yep. Second ability. Yep.
Damage and steal.
So this means that he is going to use planar cleansing.
Yeah, it looks like he's decided that because of the Dissipate, he can counter any follow-up Rakdos return, which is the card he's probably most worried about. And so he's going to be able to planar cleansing and keep Dissipate up, just losing his Witchbane Orb in the process.
Now he does have one more Witchbane Orb in his
he just drew it.
Hey, ta-da!
Yeah, so that went well for Ben.
Yes.
I mean, I suspect I would have countered the Olivia in that spot, but I mean, Ben certainly had a good reason for what he did, and it actually worked out just fine.
So Ben just being careful, choosing exactly which land he wants to add to the board.
Yeah, I watched Steven play against Owen yesterday. He's a pretty cool customer. He had an 8-8 Olivia out, and he looked the same 2 turns later when it died and he was losing. He was the same. His demeanor did not change.
And there we go. And there we go. And I mean, perfect mana,
Yeah,
right?
Ben has achieved the full Tron.
So the Witchbane Orb went away just momentarily. Now here's the second one. This is the last. Again.
There you got to look at the orb.
So don't worry about that first bit. Not really applying right now. You, that is the person who cast it, has hexproof. That's the important bit.
Yeah, there's a slaughter games that can't be cast, unfortunately. And Ben drew the 4th revelation, so...
End of your turn. Melia. Melia.
Milieu.
Ben goes into attack mode.
Yeah, he's not even casting the Angel. Like, he doesn't even need to, because he's not going to win by damage.
Cycles in his own.
Yeah, he probably doesn't want to cycle these, as he just realized when he was about to, just because he doesn't actually need any more cards. And Azorius Charm keeping Keswick Wolf Run, which Steve is short of Wolf Run and a creature, you know, it is still relevant.
And a reminder that this is a game that Stephen Mann must win.
Yeah, it's...
So we're closing in on the end.
He's going to have to draw pretty well, and it looks like he's now drawing all the cards that Witchbane Orb blanks.
So we can see.
Ben draws another planar cleansing. He's got a full set. He's just discarding a restoration. Yeah. Clue. Bad news for Stephen Mann.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a Liliana now, but...
There's the handshake, and Ben Stark advances by 3 games to 1 over Stephen Mann into the semi-finals. And he will face Joe Larsson of Sweden, and that means we have 1 quarterfinal left to go.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I agree with it being in and everything.
We'd like to thank Card House Games for being an official card retailer here at Pro Tour Gatecrash for all things Magic. Card House Games is one of the premier destinations on the internet. For more information, visit cardhouse.com. All right, Luis. All right, Brian David Marshall. We're going to come back to the booth as we head back to our last quarterfinal. It's Tom Martell. It's Melissa DeTora. We've played 3 games already, and Tom Martell, surprisingly, leads 2-1. Luis, you've been in the situation of being down there. You're down a game. You're trying to work out what to do. Maybe your hand isn't great. It can be tough down there, right?
Yeah, I mean, making top 8 at a Pro Tour is amazing. Losing in the top 8 still does not feel great. I mean, because when you walk out of the room, if you haven't won the tournament, you know, things could have gone better. Not that it's a bad thing to make top 8. It's obviously fantastic.
And it's one of these really strange tournaments where if you do lose the quarterfinal, your entire tournament that day was 0-1 drop.
Yeah.
And then we gave you lunch.
Well, and also,
the victory lunch is the biggest beating. You can tell who's really enjoying their food. And
this
people
is
who
the
are like
best sandwich I've ever had in my life.
Just picking at the potato chips, like thinking about their match.
I mean, also, the arc
one.
of your Magic career, right? Like, you're constantly wanting to prove yourself at the next level. So once you get to the top 8, you're like, I want to prove that I can win a Pro Tour. And you feel like, I think you've...
All right.
It's still an amazing accomplishment.
The players are getting going into Game 4, so let's get down to the action. Melissa DeTora and Tom Martell are piling in. They have begun their Game 4.
Tom started with the card he wants to start with on turn 1,
Go.
Champion of the Parish.
Yep, and Melissa will just lay a tapped land.
Yep.
And it is Knight of Infamy up next for Tom Martell. So
Yeah.
it's a good start for him. It's giving him the chance to increase his Champion of the Parish and then to have Exalted. And Melissa is quickly under the gun here in Game 4. A Game 4 she must win. And she's going to
Farseek.
spend 2 mana on Farseek. Gets any basic except a Forest.
To the shock of exactly no one, Tom Martell is playing Lingering Souls in a tournament he's doing well in.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to get him off Lingering Souls, you know, come the future, when he looks at his results with and without it. So it looks like Melissa had the turn 2 Farseek, but only had the M10 and, you know,
Right,
Innistrad
the
duels.
Hinterland Harbor came into play tapped because of Glacial Fortress.
Yeah.
Where it had been Hallowed Fountain, Hinterland Harbor, she would have been able to cast it.
So she's on, you know, Thragtusk mana next turn, which is a pretty good place to be if she has a Thragtusk.
If she doesn't, how much trouble is she in?
I mean, it depends on what the rest of her hand is, though. She looks like she does have the Thragtusk and a Restoration Angel, so that is kind of the ideal hand here. You'd much rather have the creatures than the Wraths against Martell's deck.
So for this turn at least, Tom Martell will think that the coast is clear to send people into the red zone, which is what he does.
13.
But he didn't have a way to get another counter on Champion of the Parish before he attacked. He lays land number 3, and there we go, his signature card, Lingering Souls. He won a Grand Prix at Indianapolis, certainly in part thanks to the multitude of 1/1 flyers that he sent onto the battlefield.
And the great thing about that is that he's not overcommitting into Wrath, even though he's playing 2 more things, it looks like, because it gets flashback. You know, it's not much of a card is getting lost.
Yeah, it's half a card, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Your turn.
Thragtusk comes down, Melissa.
Gets almost back up to starting life totals.
Yeah, Thragtusk. I mean, it makes the Lingering Souls clock not incredibly fast.
You know, and a shortage of humans for Tom, like where he could have actually, you know,
Yes.
there's some permutations of cards in his deck where, you know, he could have opened on those 2 cards and then got human, and Thragtusk couldn't even block the Champion of Parish profitably, right? Like it just speed bumps it for 2 turns, which is also fine.
If the Knight didn't have Pro White, he could flicker it with Restoration Angel and put a counter on Champion. Which is pretty sweet, but unfortunately it doesn't quite work.
There are so many reset buttons in this top 8. You see the Thragtusk saying, okay, I was at 13, but now I'm essentially back where I started. You've got Sphinx's Revelation saying, okay, I'm down to 2 cards, but actually I've got 7 again. You see Planar Cleansing coming out of sideboard saying, hey, let's just really start again. Lots of phases of gameplay going back to the start. As Tom Martell chooses how many of these Lingering Souls are coming in.
Yeah, sending just the 1 to get Exalted.
Yep.
It's the same amount of damage. He's actually not in a incredibly fantastic spot. He's got a Restoration Angel, but he doesn't have a ton of pressure in the face of that Thragtusk, and she's going to get to blink it with Restoration Angel on her turn, which is really, really good.
And, and Tom doesn't want to flashback the Lingering Souls.
No, because then he would be worried about the Wrath, which again, she doesn't have this particular game. It's all so amazing when you don't have the Wrath and they play around it. Almost as amazing as when you do and they don't. Because of Restoration Angel too, she can actually just attack kind of without fear. Like she's not too worried about what ends up happening.
Melissa pondering her options. Again, it looks like
If he blocks and kills it, that's great.
Yeah, she even has another Thragtusk in hand, so she can just wait a turn on the Angel, just play another Thragtusk, and I mean, he's going to need like some kind of heavy hitter here pretty soon, because the Spirit tokens are really not going to get it done. It's pretty hard for him to block here too. Like,
Well, I mean, if he's only getting in for 2 in the air and exalting, I mean, he can actually just chump with a token for a turn.
yeah, he's not in danger of dying anytime soon, but with the Revelation in hand, he's in danger of the game getting to a point where it's hard for him to win.
He's actually looking at a double block.
Well, I guess if he doesn't think that he's gonna like kill Melissa anytime soon, taking the hits of Thragtusk isn't really that productive. But he can't really be happy about his choices right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's you know, it's essentially four turns that kills him.
Yeah.
You know, if he's not blocking.
And he always has to respect her just on the last turn playing a Wolf Run and attacking,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh.
So
All right,
that
I know
is
if
the double block. Melissa's like, well, yep, that's completely fine.
That's
2 for
groovy.
1.
Yeah.
Love it.
sort of 3 for 1, because here's my 3/3 coming at the other end. Here's another Thragtusk. Oof.
Yeah, it's...
Go. Yep.
Yes, you may have a Restoration Angel. I am not in danger of dying just yet, thank you. The winner of this will play Eric Froehlich in the semi-finals after lunch. The other semi-final is set. It's a belter. It's Joe Larsson of Sweden against Ben Stark of the United States, the lone Pro Tour champion in this top 8.
There's a really interesting card interaction in that. I believe, does Joel Larsson have the Psychic Spiral?
He does.
That's not a card I was had on my watch list coming into this event.
Oh yeah, that was not even a card we had to find here because we brought them. We knew we were going to use them.
Show off.
Well, as silly as a card as it may look, it's really key in the Drown Yard / Jace mirrors.
Well, we watched Lucas Yaklowski just destroy Guillaume Wafatapa with one. Right. Well, I think Yaklowski had 4 cards left in his library, something like that, yesterday. Wow.
If I had to make a list of players who are likely to lose to Psychic Spiral, Wafatapa is really high. Just in the dark.
Tom, thinking. These are the cards he's thinking about.
Zealous Conscripts makes things complicated at pretty much any point in time.
Can literally and metaphorically steal a game out from under you.
Yes, both those things.
And again, if you have some opportunity to... And there comes...
So, Zealous Conscripts, I would like your Thragtusk.
I mean, this is a pretty big swing for him. She's definitely not going to block the Thragtusk. If he attacks with everything, she can either trade with Conscripts or just block the Knight. Either way, she takes
Bang, look at
a good amount of damage, yeah.
3, 6, 11, 12, 14 coming through.
Or not.
He's learned his attacking skills from Hashim Bello.
I have 3.
That's something for my friends at home.
Yeah, I'll assume it is.
Yeah, I didn't get it either.
Yeah. That does remind me of when Ifro played his land untapped and his opponent started untapping and Ifro just reached over and untapped.
That's my favorite moment of the tournament, actually.
Ifro's like, no, I'm going to play a Thragtusk if you don't mind.
Thanks for waiting.
Yeah.
So, should we have that attack again?
This does look like a more reasonable attack just because Tom concluded that throwing away a Knight or trading a Zealous Conscripts, neither of those is really great for him.
And he would love to be able to Restoration Angel that Zealous Conscript.
Yeah, that's
if
a huge
interaction. If he
interaction.
draws another Angel. Right now his hand is a Sacred Foundry.
Yeah, he can basically trade Conscripts for a guy at any point in time, so you might as well keep it in play.
So Melissa drew a land there.
Yeah, her hand is still pretty incredible, though. It's got all the tools she needs, assuming nothing too strange happens. I mean, she has a good shot at winning this game, forcing a Game 5.
I mean, and Tom obviously is much better on the play in this game than he is on the draw.
Yeah, it's not quite as severe as some matchups,
Melissa kind of put him back on the play with the Hinterland Harbor coming into play tapped on turn 2.
Yeah.
Melissa sends both her creatures into the red zone.
Yeah, having a Restoration Angel here is that is one of the better cards printed in the last year or two.
Yep.
It's been a really good mix, though, at this Pro Tour. Sometimes you just see the top cards that everyone knows are the top cards. We've seen all sorts of little corner come in. Psychic Spiral is obviously a prime example of that, but there have been loads of cards sort of in people's sideboards that you just come out and go, sorry, you did what to who?
Yeah, play a Gyre Sage, make it a 3/3 on turn 2 or turn 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Tom, the Aristocrats deck here.
Yeah.
I mean, even Conley top 16 with his Cryptghast deck,
Cryptghast,
pretty awesome.
Cryptghast into Gristlebrand.
Yeah.
Or Cryptghast into Gristlebrand, as he apparently did one game.
Or Rakdos Return for 22. How many cards in hand?
Yeah. Not enough. So now Melissa will run out the Restoration Angel. Thragtusk will come back. It left the battlefield. Remember, we showed you the graphic earlier.
17.
Yeah.
Leave the battlefield. So here comes an extra beast.
Your turn.
Yeah, she definitely wants to do it on her turn to not get the Thragtusk killed in response. And this puts her reasonably far ahead, so she wants to just make sure it happens successfully. Well, and that's the reason she did. The Orzo Charm that Tom just drew would have stopped that combo.
Tom is cursing like Fred Flintstone right now.
Yeah.
Razm Frazm.
Yeah.
Was that Stone Age for one turn too late?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, as charming as this draw was, it was not a timely draw.
Don't think I didn't notice that.
What are you talking about?
Can have words with you at lunchtime.
Words with double meaning.
The fact that Melissa has an Azorius charm too makes any sort of combat really complicated. Though she can't put Knight back on top. She doesn't want to put just kill the spirit, and she definitely doesn't want to put Restoration Angel or Zealous Conscripts on top.
It's got to be you, Token.
Yeah,
it could be her Thragtusk.
yeah. I mean, it could be her Thragtusk. It could be gain 14 life if she really needs it to.
Just the Restoration Angel. Possibly. So it is the Restoration Angel coming in.
Which is likely a 4/5.
Yeah, there's not much disadvantage to blocking here, and then, well, I don't know. Like, she's a 17. There's no way she should block.
I'll take it.
13.
She agrees with you.
Yeah, I mean, because if she puts it back
13,
again,
yep.
blinking Zealous Conscripts could set her up pretty badly.
So again, reason it's a 4/5, 3/4 on the card, but then you get the Exalted trigger from the Knight of Infamy down there at the bottom right of your screen.
Just interesting, under the new trigger rules, you don't need to announce that it's a 4/5 until creatures happen to tussle.
Yeah, and Martin Juza got by that by Sam.
Got worked pretty hard.
And basically, against the same deck. Martell also just ran a little bluff last turn, it looks like. Well, no, I guess if he wants to bounce Orzo Charm his Angel, that's not even a bluff. But playing the Sacred Foundry untapped does signal that something is going on. So Melissa's got to be thinking about that now.
So let's take a look at some of the modes on Orzhov Charm and what that means.
Yeah, it's the first one that's relevant here, or the most relevant.
So you get the chance to return the creature and any of the auras that are sitting on top of it. The middle one, destroy, with the downside, or you can just get a converted mana cost 1 or less back from the graveyard to the battlefield.
Their deck can use all three. I mean, they can bounce their guys with come to play triggers. They can return Champions of the Parish to play.
Yeah, I mean, you can see we're bouncing a Restoration Angel or a Zealous Conscripts, or essentially both. And if you do the Restoration Angel, is just unbelievable.
So if Melissa makes an attack here, she's likely thinking about the Orzhov Charm, but if she makes an attack and Tom goes bounce Angel, blink Conscripts, untap Thragtusk, steal it, block your token, we might be in a situation where she's going to want to put her Thragtusk back on top.
Return to my hand.
Here we go.
Yeah, we're off to the races.
Yeah.
Cast Restoration Angel.
Yep.
Open Zealous Conscripts.
Yep.
Returns to play. I'll target Thragtusk.
Turns to play, I'll target Thragtusk.
Let's Thragtusk.
Untaps it.
Right, okay.
I'm ready to block.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I would have expected her to charm there, but she can still charm the Thragtusk, and there's actually not much harm done. He did get a block out of it, but...
I have 3.
I'm at 10 life.
Yep.
You are at 10 life, Tom Martell, yes.
This combat is going to go reasonably well for Tom. But she certainly can't let the Thragtusk and Beast trade and give Tom another token. That seems like it might put her in a tough spot.
For anyone at home wondering about, like, Orzhov Charm is the card of choice in that deck, there you see just an amazing application of it.
Yeah, it untapped an Angel and triggered a Conscripts, which is a lot for a 2-mana card.
Filthy.
Like that.
All right.
Damage.
No. Well, first I'll order this guy first.
Yep.
Melissa, a very technical player.
Yeah.
I'll Azorius Charm this Thragtusk.
Sure.
Yeah, her not charming in response means Martell actually ends up with the Beast token here.
Yeah, she could be a beast ahead here.
Yeah.
Okay. So you take 3?
And I think she just blanked for a second that was going to come into play untapped.
Yeah, she slid it over tapped, it looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She still has a detention sphere to kill, like, probably the Restoration Angel.
Or the beasts.
Yeah.
No, she's going to lose her beast, so. Yeah.
Angel.
So, and knowing she's going to draw Thragtusk means that she's not in horrible shape here. I mean, Martell could very easily draw something to it.
Martell's out of card, so.
Yeah.
But Martell has a game to give, and Melissa does not.
Yeah, that is pretty critical.
Top of his deck.
Took a very quick look.
Yeah, he wants an Aristocrat. I think that's, or another Zealous Conscripts. If that would actually just put the game away right here.
Then he took another look and put it straight back down again. Thanks, Tom.
I mean, Restoration Angel would be fine here.
Yeah, he's got a lot of live draws.
But we know that he drew Knight of Infamy.
All right. Well, that means this game is back to being very close.
But Melissa really needs something off the top of her deck besides that Thragtusk.
Whoa, look at that.
Yeah.
Another of the well-known 2 attack steps for Tom. The dummy one and then the actual one.
Maybe he likes Gust Cloaks a lot from
Gust Cloak Savior and things like that.
Yeah.
So in come the guys.
And this board is basically stable after Melissa's draw step, but then it's just anyone's game. Whoever draws, like Tom draws a flyer or like a Ghost Council. If he might not, he probably has those in because of Wraths. So.
Or Melissa just gets a revelation and that takes her away.
That's generally gonna finish things off.
She might even be able to win things on a Wolf run.
Yeah, I mean the Lingering Souls is here, but Martell is also at 7 life.
Yeah, and Tom is just absolutely running out everything. He did the flashback on Lingering Souls.
I mean, he knows that she's not drawing a Wrath. She could have a Wrath in her hand, but he knows she's not drawing one.
Yeah.
So the question here is, do you play that last card out in your hand? Do you play your land onto the board?
I'm generally in favor of it here because when you draw Revelation, you're just going to need that 2 life or the extra land.
But she'd rather represent Azorius Charm here.
Yeah, to be fair, Martell is someone who plays around a lot of cards. That's just in his nature. So having a card in hand will make it a lot tougher for him to commit to things.
And something he's very public about.
Yep.
Yeah. And he talks about all the things he plays around in his articles and his videos.
But that is so far in advance of most of us as players that the times when you decide to not play around things is again a level above where most of us are.
Silverblade Paladin. So now he's been slamming
some new math.
for potentially 4 in the air if he double strikes and then or 6 in the air. So Melissa's on a 1-turn clock here. If he just does it with a token and hits for 6.
Yep.
And the reason it hits for 6 is because of 2 Knights of Infamy.
I'll take it. So it's
Giving it double
6,
exalted.
4.
All right, so she's got a top deck, but her Pro Tour is actually over.
Wow. Here we go. Just a land in hand for Melissa. Here comes the card. What does she find? It's a detention sphere.
That does keep her alive.
Whew. This is a matchup that's supposed to be really tough for Tom, but he is finding every edge. That Oars of Charm play, for example.
Yeah, that was a pretty big game. He's now down to 5 creatures if she goes ahead and spheres the spirit tokens.
Which she has to.
Yeah, well, she could live if she spheres the Silverblade, but it's not by very much.
Yeah.
I imagine that is not what her target's going to be.
1, 2, 3. Here it comes, and where is it going?
And I know someone who's watching this match with great anticipation is Eric, because his match against Melissa is very bad, and his match against Martell is pretty close. So
Spirit token.
he definitely has a lot invested in the stakes of this outcome.
So spirit tokens are indeed going to vanish forever.
And it's funny because the Aristocrats is all about sacrificing creatures.
Yeah.
If Tom had some ability to sacrifice one of those tokens,
that would save the other one and win the game.
Your turn.
Or almost.
Pass the turn, and now the top of the deck we need to care about is Tom Martell's.
You have 1 card?
Yes.
1 card apiece.
I feel like you do something about that with that. You have 1 card.
Yeah.
Justin.
did he draw Falcon Wrath Aristocrat?
Yep.
Or at 4, he asks.
He thinks he's got this, doesn't he?
Yeah, he seems confident. I mean, he's ahead regardless of what he drew, but
I mean, she only has 3 blockers.
yeah, he can actually just attack.
He just attacks and wins.
Well,
What could you have, Melissa? What will put a spanner in the works of me enjoying my lunch?
It could be a Restoration Angel.
Yeah. It could be an Azorius Charm.
Azorius Charm's less good here.
The problem is, if she had one of those cards last turn, she would have probably played it. He can really narrow it down. Like,
so it has to be Azorius Charm, in his mind, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that is a card she conceivably could have not played. But even though Martell is on the conservative side, I feel like he's likely to go for it here.
He wants to go for it here.
Yeah, it's so hard to have it in your grasp. And you just regret forever if you do the wrong one, but...
And you see him literally rolling up his sleeves.
Yeah.
There, I mean, that's a real thing. It's like,
and look at Melissa's just affect. She just gives you absolutely nothing.
Yeah, she's just completely stone-faced.
And keep in mind, there's a card that we don't know about.
Oh, it's a Lingering Souls, which makes the attack much safer. It means if he goes for it and is wrong, he still probably wins on the next turn. So, given that he drew a Lingering Souls, I think Martell is a pretty big favorite just to go for it here.
So, Tom begins what may be the first of several attacks this turn.
Looks like he's just sending the beast. Well,
see?
Yeah.
It's like
spoke too soon.
And at some point, the judge may be, Tom, I need you to make a play.
There we go. But here it is. Beast.
Just that.
So here's a question for you. How different is this game if Melissa Azorius charms that Thragtusk while it was still on her side of the board?
So she takes 3 less damage just to start because of the beast that attacked her last turn. But I think, given the way this is played out, she's probably in a bad position either way.
Don't be confused by the way that beast, it didn't go across to Melissa's side. It died, but the Thragtusk died. She gets a beast back. Tom was just saying, use this one.
So Martell's putting in lethal.
There's only so many beasts in the universe.
Yeah.
He's representing lethal with souls bonded to Paladin while keeping the flashback as an option if, worst case scenario, she has a Wrath. Revelation does keep her alive next turn. That or Wrath are pretty much what she's looking to draw here.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, looks like Martell is advancing if he just attacks with the 1 token, which is a play he's shown a willingness to do.
Yeah. 1 token paired with Silverblade Paladin, boosted by 2 Knights of Infamy, is 6 damage. 2 tokens attacking, 2 damage.
Yeah.
It's so illogical. Well, actually 3 damage. It's still paired.
But, yeah.
So still, Melissa gives nothing away as she sits there with an army of beasts. Then she passes the turn to Tom Martell. We know that last turn...
There's no reason Tom would not just attack.
With the 1 token, yeah.
And even if he attacks with everybody...
Yeah, I mean, it's...
So...
I mean, when you're in this spot, he's still going to be triple checking the math because you don't want, to snatch a defeat from the jaws of victory. But I think Martell is going to settle on just attacking with the 1 token.
Tom's previous top 8, he didn't advance past the quarterfinals.
Yeah, he lost to Ben in the finals. Oh, he drew an aristocrat too. Which
there's the game, the set, the match. Tom Martell advances to the semi-finals. 3-1, good game, says Melissa. Tom Martell will face Eric Froehlich in the semi-finals. What a semi-final lineup we have for you this afternoon. Ben Stark up against Joel Larsson and Tom Martell against Eric Froehlich. My colors, my guild, my shirt. Proclaim your allegiance today by purchasing your guild apparel at mtgmerc.com. And we are going to head down to the floor and bring you Rashad Miller with the winner of that match, Mr. Tom Martell.
Hey, this is Rashad Miller. I'm here with semifinalist Tom Martell. Now, that was a really long time you thought about that attack, not the winning attack,
Yep.
but the attack before that attack. And I know people at home are thinking, you have 5 creatures, Melissa has 3.
Sure.
Why not just get them all in there?
Well, so I actually have lethal on the board if she has nothing, because I can play Lingering Souls, give my Silver Blade Paladin double strike, attack with everyone, and if she does nothing, she's dying. But then if she has anything, I'm actually going to die on the swing back, and I just get blown out. So because I drew Lingering Souls, I think I'm so far ahead on the board, and I can now survive a Wrath too, and I have lethal in the air with my tokens that follow the next turn. I don't need to do that attack. So I can just attack with just the 1 token, make her trade off, and then probably trade off with a Beast token. In this case, best case scenario, I actually trade off with the Thrag Tusk, and then just play the 1 Lingering Souls, save the flashback for late game again. This gives me so much resiliency to her redraws, and then I can still I'm still threatening lethal for the next 3 turns in a row.
Okay, so you're going to be going up against Eric Froehlich in the semifinals, and he's playing the Kibler-esque Naya deck. How do you like your chances against that deck?
So if it's truly a Kibler deck, I like my chances a lot. I played Kibler actually in the Swiss on camera, and so people got the chance to see that. His deck's much more aggressive, so it's a lot harder. It's a much faster matchup for me. So I think my chances are good. I think it's certainly a favorable matchup. I haven't tested that many games. Frankly, this matchup is so bad that I thought my chances of making it through were pretty small, so I didn't want to get ahead of myself and really worry about the semifinals. So I'm going to go kind of do a little download right now, meet up with the team, discuss what we think our chances are, best sideboarding plan, and figure that out.
All right, Tom Martell, representing Azorius, back to the booth.
All right, thanks very much, Rashad. That's fantastic. 4 quarterfinals are in the books. Ben Stark 3-1 over Stephen Mann. Joe Larsson 3-1 over Gerry Thompson. Tom Martell over Melissa DeTora 3-1. And finally, Eric Froehlich 3-1 against Owen Turtenwald. We've got no time to talk. We've got other people we pay to do that, and that is at the news desk. We will see you after lunch with the semi-finals.
They get paid?
And welcome back to the Tournament Center, everybody. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm joined by Zach Hill and Tim Willoughby. Whew. Let's take a quick look at the bracket. We're going to be giving you guys some in-depth feedback, or some feedback.
That's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. So we're going to be going in-depth on the matchups a little bit later, but for now, let's just look at the story of how people got here. We see at the top of the brackets, Ben Stark advances past Stephen Mann. He's playing Esper, and Joel Larsson moves on past Gerry Thompson from that blue-white-red mirror match. Down below in the lower half of the bracket, Eric Froehlich 3-1 over Owen Turtenwald. Eric's playing Naya. And on the bottom, Tom Martell with the Aristocrats advances as well. Okay, so we've had a look at that, and we're going to come back to it because we know that we want to get in-depth and do a little analysis on that. But what we have right now is something a little different. We're going to kind of pull ourselves away from the whole Pro Tour grindy. Yeah, relax.
Stretch a little bit.
Stretch, because it's intense, right? You're sitting there, you're staring at your laptop, you're staring at your HD TV at home, and you're like, and now it's like, it's time. Maybe you have a sandwich that has your name on it. You can get your sandwich, get some chips, get a glass of water, and hang out with us for a little while we do kind of a halftime show. One thing we have for you a little bit later is a new product announcement, so you're going to want to hang around with us for that one. It's pretty sweet, and we're going to be doing that in just a little bit. But first, I want to talk to you, Zach.
I also want to talk about myself.
Yeah.
I know that's going to really surprise everyone. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet today. I haven't looked in the mirror, so,
He actually...
Untrue.
So what we're going to do
That's
is we're going to take a little time to chat with Zach, then we're going to do our thing, and then we're going to talk with Tim, and then we're going to do some analysis on the thing. So, Zach, what I kind of wanted to get out of you today was you're in a fairly unique position of not only Magic players, but people in the world, of having been at the top of the game for the competitive circuit. You had top 8'd the Pro Tour, just like we're seeing here, and then you took a job at R&D, and now you're coming back into the competitive scene. Why don't you start to walk us through what that's been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a crazy point in time back then. I top 8'd Pro Tour Honolulu, and then I could have qualified for the Malaysian national team, but as I was living there at the time, but I wouldn't have been able to play at Worlds because of the R&D thing. And now, back out of R&D, I've been away for about 6 months. I actually played at Grand Prix Atlantic City.
You did?
Earlier this year, and it turns out that playing Magic is very hard.
It's very difficult. Did you experience a lot of rust?
I experienced an embarrassing amount of rust.
Did you?
I mean, it's interesting because there are some things that, like playing Magic day in and day out and designing sets. I worked on 6 blocks worth of sets. You start to get a lot better at thinking strategically, I think. And a lot of the sort of element of Magic that just involves like playing in tournaments, playing against the best players in the world, that type of thing, it gets a lot less intimidating because you sort of seen how...
you can see the moving parts, pull back the curtain a little bit,
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
can see how the machine works. I've heard Brian Kibler, who's also a game designer by trade, he's also cited that as one of his strengths, is that he feels like he can see the underpinnings of the game very clearly, and that can take a lot of the layers away as far as how to play best.
Yeah, exactly. It allows you to select decks a lot better. I think we had a great deck for Atlantic City, courtesy of Zvi Mauschwitz and Sam Black, largely. I think I do a pretty good job of being able to predict an environment. What's a lot harder though is the actual tactical playing of a game of Magic. Making sure you do a combat correctly, making sure you don't forget any activated abilities.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing, even yesterday when I was commentating on a match, right? I'm thinking about Witchbane Orb, which Melissa had in play. I'm like, oh, that's what you play in order to not get Nephalia Drownyarded or Jaced. And then it was but it also stops burn spells, right?
Yeah.
You just aren't thinking about what the cards actually do.
Yeah.
So definitely coming back, I was way rusty on just the mechanics of cards, because when you're inside R&D, you're not thinking about how can I play better the next match?
You're dealing more with experiences.
Well, you're looking at the way the game went to think okay, was that balanced? Was it fun?
Which is a much different criteria.
Right. Whereas in order to get better at Magic, you have to look at the match you just played and think about oh, did I just make a mistake there? What could I have done differently? And that's just not your mindset at all as a game designer.
So does it become almost second nature for you after having worked in R&D for 3 plus years?
Yeah.
You were lead designer for sets, lead developer for sets. You designed and developed many sets as well as part of the teams on those. Did it become second nature for you to think in those terms? And when you first sat back down to do, a play test session or to try out a new deck, was it hard for you to get your mind out of that gear?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we play tested some decks, and again, I did a little bit of work for this tournament. I was I would not play that because I do not think that's fun.
Yeah.
Right? And that's bad because
not the most valuable feedback.
Right. They're well, that's good. I want to win a Pro Tour though, so thank you. But yeah, you have to retrain yourself. And conversely, when I first started inside R&D, coming from the perspective of a player, I had to retrain myself not to think about oh, that card was really good, or I'm having fun. Why am I having fun? Because I'm winning. That is not how you design a game, because it turns out that winning is always fun.
Yes.
And
so that's a constant, but how you get to that point isn't.
Exactly. And you don't want to design the game that is just the thing that you're best at winning at. No one else on the planet will want to play that game.
Yeah. So how has it been? Can you talk us through? I kind of want to get the end.
Okay.
So the top 8 and where you when you took the job at R&D, were you? Was there a little bit of you looking behind your shoulder but man, I finally just had everything come together for me and got my top 8, and now I'm kind of leaving it behind?
I mean, there was definitely an element of oh, do I want to keep playing? Because that's a lot of pro points. But I definitely worked very hard on Honolulu. I knew it was going to be my last event. I went to Pro Tour qualifiers in 5 countries to try and qualify for it.
And you made the finals of a bunch of them.
I
remember talking to you about this.
Second, 4th, 9th, 8th, second, first. So, I mean, I knew it was kind of going to be my last event. I prepared for the event a lot. I sat down, trying to play. I mean, it was the hardest I'd ever played in my life. So I kind of knew that it was going to be the grand finale, I guess. And I wanted to go out with a bang.
Okay, so now you spend your time in R&D, and now fast forward to just last month, and we're in Atlantic City, and you're shuffling up for your first round. How did that feel?
The first round felt kind of weird.
Because you don't normally play in the first round.
Right, I was playing. That was the first weird part. I haven't played in round 1 of a Grand Prix since 1999.
No buys.
Really
no buys, exactly. And it's it's a full day of Magic. And I started out, I was pretty fortunate. I won a lot of die rolls that event. I started out 8-0. I finished day 1 9-1.
Yeah, you were crushing it. I got to come by. I was actually doing coverage for the event, but we didn't start the coverage until the 4th round, so I got to come see you play a little bit, and I got to say, it was pretty awesome. Because I talk to you about Magic all the time, and right when you left the Pro Tour, is right when I started paying attention
Totally.
to it. Yeah, so it's like there was this weird crossover there, and I haven't really seen you actually play that much, and I got to say, it was a real treat to watch you. You handle yourself at the table.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that you were watching when it was a treat, because around day 2,
there were times when it wasn't.
There were times it was definitely not. I definitely remembered like how hard it is to play 2 or even 3 days of Magic. You know, I felt very focused and in the zone on day 1. Again, I knew it was my first tournament deck, so I wanted to make it count. But around like day 2, day 1, I'd be like, oh, I need to play around Celestia Charm and Restoration Angel and Abrupt Decay and figure out how to attack 2 turns such that I have lethal. Day 2, I was not doing that. I forgot cards were in the format. I made my Olivia Voldaren a 5-power creature for no reason. Got it Celestia Charm. I attacked I sat and thought about an attack for like a minute and a half and confidently tapped all my creatures to get my opponent down to 1 life. On board. Did not need to do that. My opponent looked at me like I was stupid, untapped, and attacked for the win. So, I mean, the thing that highlights to me is that, we're watching players in the feature match area playing in their 3rd straight day of Magic after 16 rounds.
Yeah.
It is hard to overestimate exactly how difficult it is to sit under those lights and play at the top of your game. I mean, it's just a very hard thing to do.
It really is.
And I'm remembering that now.
Yeah, whether you wanted to or not. Tim, did you have anything to ask Zach?
I mean, I guess the thing for me that still kind of blows my mind is you've worked at R&D. There's a lot of sets in your head. Are there rules about when you can start playing at different levels?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be able to play on the Pro Tour for 2 years. I can't play at any Pro Tours of sets that I've worked on because that would kind of be unfair.
That wouldn't
so where does that shift your focus then? Are you going to be the GP grinder, World Magic Cup player?
I want to play it. My job also takes up just a ton of time. So
you're a busy guy.
I don't know how much I can play. I want to play at a few Grand Prix. The thing that I really want to do, I'm going to try hard to qualify for the World Magic Cup because it's the one premier level event I can play in.
That tournament's sweet as well.
Yeah, and it was also awesome. Yeah, I just remember covering it. It looked like a lot of fun.
It was fantastic. We have a lot of great memories from that and a lot of great GIFs and YouTube clips that came out of that as well. So
I was stood there when that GIF was filmed. It was so good.
Are you in the background?
I am. You can just see the iPad. You can't see that it's me, but I know I'm there, so I'm happy.
That's what counts. But yeah, I mean, qualifying for that event is super hard. We're going to see if that can happen. But that's kind of my goal for this year.
Okay, well, good luck, and it's really great to have you back at a top-level competitive play. You guys want to do a little announcement here?
I would very much like to.
I kind of want to do an announcement. So we've got a really great new product. Well, it's a next of a line of products. Why don't we bring up the graphic for it right now to give you a little bit of a view of Magic the Gathering From the Vault 20. Ooh, so From the Vault 20, for those of you that don't know, this coming year is going to be the 20th anniversary of Magic, which is insane.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we reflect upon that for a little bit?
Yeah.
That is insane.
So I was 10 when Magic came. I've been playing Magic for most of my life. Definitely well more than half of my life. It's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah, I know, Zach, you were talking to me the other day about how you were in 8th grade when you were playing high-level Magic.
Yeah, I was 8 years old when I started playing.
8 years old, yeah.
My first event, my first major event was JSS Nationals 1998 when I was in middle school. I remember that I was wearing a Boba Fett shirt. I was
that's awesome.
Winning. And then my first Pro Tour was in 2001. I was in 10th grade. It was crazy.
And we have so much history and so much culture built around the game, and now we're going to have a really cool commemorative From the Vault set. Let's take a look at some of the things. Now, we're not going to tell you the cards in the set. I'm just going to tell you that straight away, but there is some information that we're going to give you because this one's a little bit different than the rest of the From the Vault sets. The first thing is that in celebration of our 20th anniversary this year, it's 20 cards and not 15, which all the other From the Vaults have been.
Bonus.
That's a bonus. So that's fantastic. Let's bring in the next little piece of information. So it contains a card. Now this is really cool, you guys. It contains a card from a championship winning deck from each year. It could be a Pro Tour, and we also count Worlds as a championship winning deck. For the first year, we chose a card from a deck that won the first competitive tournament at Gen Con because the Pro Tour wasn't there yet.
And I mean, that's cool. It's the first Magic tournament ever.
Yeah.
We have a deck list for.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do is we're going to get one card each from all of us. Now, that's a pretty good big card pool for each year. It's not massive, but it's fairly big, so it's not, we can start trying to guess what's in there, and I'm sure the chat and everybody on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere on the internet are already starting to guess about what they could be, but it's going to be beautiful. I think we're going to have you know, it's going to kind of tell a story as things go, you know, because we've noticed that, you know, the complexion of the game has changed since, you know, the good old days, as we call them, you know, the golden age of Magic. And I think we're going to get to kind of get a feel for that as we've progressed up the ages into the modern realm that we're in now. Now, there's a little more information that we're going to give you guys up on the screen here. These are things that are true of all the From the Vaults, but it's just good information to have. You're going to get an exclusive spin down life counter. You're going to get a collector's guide. Every card's been printed using the unique foiling process that they use for the From the Vault sets. The 20 cards are all in the current card frame. They're not going to do any of the retro card frames for that. It's all that. From the Vault 20 will be available worldwide in English only, and it's going to have an extremely limited print run, so that's going to be one you're going to want to get your hands on for sure. And all the cards are black bordered and tournament legal. Of course, that means that they're tournament legal in legals in which the card would actually be legal. So, you know, you can't just put them into anything, but you can actually play with these cards, or if you're a collector, you know, put the thing up on the mantle.
And they all have a tournament pedigree, right? So
yeah, exactly. They've already won tournaments.
Yeah, they do indeed. And that's important because especially when you just look back, you know, at the last few years, you're going to definitely have some cards, you know, for modern, maybe a couple for standard if they've been reprinted. So there's going to be some great stuff. We've got a little bit more information. We're going to give you the price when it's going to come out. Let's bring that graphic up right now. So the release date is August 23rd of this year. That's not actually that far away. It's about 6 months away. It's going to be $39.99 for the suggested retail price on it. The concept and the development team for it were Jeremy Jarvis and Gavin Verhey, two guys that you worked closely with, Gavin, and Jeremy works in creative. And if you guys want to tweet about it, you see we have a hashtag FTV20. Now, we're not quite done with you guys yet when it comes to this announcement. We have something really cool to show you. We have a piece of artwork from one of the cards, but we don't get to tell you what it is.
We don't know what it is.
And I actually have no idea.
I won't tell.
Yeah, so why don't we bring that up now? There it is. I'm not going to venture a guess, but I'm sure the guesses are going to be firing off rapid fire as people start to dissect what this could possibly be. I see there's a skull in the background.
Yeah, I started crunching the numbers. Like, there's a ton of cards that have been in tournament-winning decks over the last 20 years. Like,
that's right. So, you know, we see some blue magical things happening here. Who knows? So, so you guys can take a good look at that beautiful piece of artwork and try to figure out what that might be.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about we mentioned designed primarily by Gavin Verhey. He's awesome, very smart guy, knows what makes a cool card. Jeremy Jarvis, our art director, worked on this product. Jeremy is one of the most talented people in the entire industry.
He's one of those guys that when he walks in and starts talking, you're kind of like, that man's probably smarter than me and better at many things. He just has that air about him. And he's also really funny.
Yeah, he's just a great guy, and I mean, honestly, just a brilliant visual mind. The reason I bring that up is a lot of these cards are gonna have art that you've never seen before on them. And you know, for collectors or people that really like to get like the awesomest versions of cards for their deck, for their commander deck, for a cube or something like that, Jeremy's done a really great job selecting pieces that really pop for that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Jeremy, he's even done art on
ad nauseum. He specializes in watercolor because, you know, he needs to be more talented.
Why not?
Unbelievable.
So that's it from the Vault 20. I'm really curious what people think that card is now. I'm going to look after just because I have to know.
You're going to be checking your Twitter feed?
Yeah, I'm going to be checking it. Let me know. You can tweet at me or all of us. Let us know what you think it is. We don't know, so we can't confirm or deny, but I am curious of what the best guess is out there. Okay, so that's that. From the Vault 20, look forward in August. Tim.
Yes.
Now, we haven't had you on the desk before.
I'm very excited to be here. It's a nice place to be. I got my comfy seat.
Who are you exactly?
Well, I'm Tim Willoughby. I've been on the coverage team, on text coverage, for quite a while now, really.
You've been on for a long time.
I realized the other day, we had LSV in the booth. My first Pro Tour on coverage was Pro Tour London, back in Kamigawa block, and that was the one where LSV just missed making his top 8. He lost to Tommy Wallamies in the final round, so he got his top 8.
Yeah.
And that was my first shot on the Pro Tour, and I've been pretty much doing coverage ever since.
Okay, so you've been around and in the trenches for quite a while now.
Yes.
And you know what it's like to fly around the world, to play and to cover Magic events. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about, Tim, wasn't Magic itself in this context, but you get to go travel and do things kind of parallel to the Magic, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've got to see, do, experience as a result.
It's very cool. I mean, I guess that, like, as a player, there's this sort of burden of, yes, you can travel to all these events, but it can get a little pricey sometimes flying around the world, and sort of,
it's a factor.
If like Martin User, he's winning enough that he probably can go to every event everywhere. You see me there, that was me at one of the Pro Tours. A lot of my travel ends up being eating miraculous food.
What are you eating right there?
That was a bacon donut at the last Pro Tour. So that was in Seattle. That was my first time in Seattle. This is my first time in Canada. I've got a chance to go to Japan, all over Europe. And it often seems to work out that that's where I've had so many sort of cultural experiences, trying different foods, seeing the way that different people play Magic around the world as well. I mean, I know how things work in England. They're maybe a little bit different to how things work in the US. And then sort of, I was talking to Joel Larsson, one of our top 8ers, and he was telling me about how the pre-release in Sweden that he went to had like 300, 400 players. It was like a small GP.
Which is much different than we experience here in the States. You know, their store ran now, and you know, mine had 25. You know, at a local store.
And both ways around are great. I mean, I try and make an effort to travel to a few different pre-releases to see how different ones go, because it's always nice to see how different places approach all different types of Magic. So like my regular draft in London, that happens somewhere where I can get Indian food and eat while I draft, which is not necessarily something I would assume that everyone can do.
Yeah, I have not experienced the Indian food draft yet. I've drafted on airplanes, trains.
Have you done a boat?
I have drafted on a boat, yes. It was a cruise
Worlds
ship.
in Paris, we got a great one.
It was a big boat.
I did one at Worlds in Paris, drafting, going down the Seine in a river boat.
This is great. We have where have you drafted stories.
Incidentally, I mentioned this in the coverage of London. If you are drafting on a plane, try and like proliferate decks. Not necessarily as good as some of the other ones there. Like, you've got a little tray table, but yeah, you can fit some in there if you really want to. And even an 8-man I've seen happen on a plane once.
That's like a rule. You can't play a creature if you don't have physical space.
Yeah, we have a lot of house rules for that sort of thing.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, so you get to see Magic as it's physically played at many different locations. Are there any differences country to country? Like, I know one of the things that I notice is I'm from Seattle, and a lot of players in Seattle like to use a play mat. You know, one of the mats that you can play, it makes moving the cards around easier, and it looks cool. But you go to some other cities and nobody uses them. You sit down with one and they're like, I call it a battle blanket. But what is that?
I do not call it a battle blanket.
Dueling doily?
I'm blown away. No,
I'm going to call it that now.
You do see sort of regional differences. So like one of the cool things at GPs is you see a lot of players that they'll have like what might start out as a plain playmat, but because there's an artist at every GP these days, maybe a couple, that playmat will slowly but surely get populated with more and more artwork. Like sometimes, I mean, for example, Arcade Post, he shows up at quite a lot of events.
A lot of them, yes.
And you'll see some people that they've got like their Arcade Post 2011 picture in the top right, the 2010 in the top left, and gradually just build up this memento of their travel around the world playing Magic.
Wow, that is
really cool.
Because you can actually get a plain playmat, a white one, you know, with no art on it at all, and just have the artist like kind of put each of their pieces on it and come up with like a collage of different artists.
And that's very cool. I mean, it's something that I found myself doing a little bit. Like, I would get just like a souvenir card at various events, and you know, get it signed by the artist that was there, or maybe get it signed by some of the players that have done well, sort of thing. Just so that I've got this. I don't necessarily collect loads and loads of cards. I like playing limited more than constructed these days. But I do have a binder with like various cards that just remind me of all the places I've been, because traveling in Europe, I don't get a stamp in the passport for everywhere. So after a while, it kind of blows your mind a little bit just how many events you've been to.
But it's good because you'll take a minute to pick out a card that you want to do, go visit the artist, get it signed, and just have it as a memento.
Yeah, it's kind of cool just to have that visual reference, because I have been to a lot of, I mean, Rich Hagan was telling me that he's hitting his 100th event this year, which is
Rich
crazy.
Is just a machine. Like, there's no other way. The guy is just an absolute animal with this stuff. Now, what about food? Because this is something that I didn't realize until I started traveling around to all these events, is that a lot of like high-level Magic players are really into good food, and when they go to a city, they already know what restaurants they're going to before they even show up.
So this is a funny thing. I would say that before I started doing travel around the world, like food was kind of like fuel for me. Like, you know, you need to make sure you get some pretty regularly, or else you fall over, and that's that. But no, I mean, experiencing different cultures, traveling around the world is great, and one of the reasons for that is the different food you get. So I'd never had sushi before I went to Japan, for example.
So your first sushi experience was actually in Japan?
I had a little period of maybe like 2 or 3 months after I got back from Yokohama. I think it was my first time in Japan, where I was like, I'm just going to save sushi for when I'm in Japan, because I never want to have bad sushi, because when it's good, it's really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of fell by the wayside fairly quickly, because sushi's just amazing. But like, I'm looking forward to having some poutine in Canada, probably either this evening or tomorrow before I fly back. And everywhere you go, you get little different bits and pieces. It was nice to me. Gavin Verhey was traveling around a little bit over the Christmas break. He came and visited us in London. We took him out for a curry on Brick Lane in London, which is like an iconic street for Indian food.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of
Brick Lane, it's called?
Brick Lane. It's a street in East London that is basically nothing but curry houses, and it's a bit of an experience in itself. When we had a GP in Brighton, I took Shuhei Nakamura out for fish and chips. I explained them to Gerry, who's in our top 8 today, and he was like, "Yeah, you know what? This disgusts me. I'm not going anywhere close to this. Like, chips are French fries, but they're kind of a little bit greasier. Like, historically, it'd be sort of served in newspapers, like battered fish. But yeah, Shuhei seemed to dig it.
He's pretty open-minded when it comes. He's been everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, Shuhei, one of the people that I'll see at events all over the planet. It's nice to have that universal language that means that, you know, if I'm traveling to a GP, you know, as a player or a writer, I know that if I suddenly find myself in Malaysia, that even if I don't know anyone there, I don't really know that many people in Malaysia, I know that I'm immediately going to be able to have that connection.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the awesome things about Magic in general. I mean, we're all very spoiled, because, like, pick any major city, like, you know, certainly in North America, basically like on Earth, and there are going to be Magic players that you can immediately like meet and know and hang out with, and like have some place to stay. I mean, it's really kind of this ridiculous luxury that this community affords us.
Yeah, I mean, even not looking at sort of big travel, like when I got my very first job, I was moving away from home. I wasn't living in the countryside. I was moving to like one of the cities in England. And I was like, man, I need to find somewhere to live. And I don't really know anyone in this town. And then I realized, actually, no, I do know some people in this town because they play Magic. Cool. I end up living with one of them for 5 years, and like it immediately means that you can just settle into a scene wherever it is that you are, which is really awesome.
And just kind of become comfortable immediately.
Yeah. It's building up that friend network in a new place is hard, but when you got Magic, it doesn't need to be.
Great. Thanks for that, Tim. Let's take a look at the semifinals here. We're going to be moving slowly towards getting back down to the feature match area, and what that means is there's going to be action soon, and we want to get you as prepared as possible here. So why don't we bring up the bracket again if we can, and take a look at our first semifinal match. You see it's going to be Ben Stark versus Joel Larsson here. So let's talk about the decks really quickly. Well, not really quickly. Let's actually go in depth about the decks that these guys are playing. So Ben Stark is on Esper.
Yeah.
This is a full dedicated control deck.
Yeah, and it's a deck that Ben is very comfortable with. I mean, you know, there have been decks like this for as long as I can remember playing Magic. They just try to grind your opponent out of threats, make their removal pretty bad, gain card advantage. Obviously, Sphinx's Revelation, one of the best methods of gaining card advantage ever printed.
That's right.
And eventually winning with Nephalia Drownyard or a Jace, just some Planeswalker that kind of just literally runs the opponent out of all of their cards.
Now, the win condition, Nephalia Drownyard is the primary.
Oh yeah, and Nephalia Drownyard, you know, kids these days are so spoiled. I remember having to cast a Millstone to try and
you had to use like a real spell?
A real card, yeah.
2-mana artifact that just does it 2 cards at a time.
2 cards at a time. That's
and
why
any time they can destroy it.
Yeah, they can disenchant it, and like you have to basically take a mulligan just to play this win condition.
Yeah.
But it was still good because, you know, you couldn't Swords to Plowshares it, you couldn't bolt it. Now you just get a land that does all that.
It taps for mana.
Yeah, how lucky. And it'll mill them for 3 cards, not 2.
Comes into play untapped.
Yeah.
The card is insane.
LSV was saying in the feed there, you know, it taps for mana and it wins the game. What more
do you want? Yeah,
and
precisely.
That sums it up nicely. Now, Joel Larsson, he is playing blue, white, red aggro?
Yeah,
mid-range? It's got some aggressive elements.
It's a mid-range deck, but it definitely can be very, very aggressive, especially once he gets his Geist of Sane traps. You're playing Boros Charm, which can kill Planeswalkers, but also can deal 4 to the face. I was talking with some of the Team Fireball guys in the back. I was like, hey, so what are some of the differences between Gerry Thompson's deck and Joel's? Because they were meeting in the quarterfinals. And Raptor, Josh Hutter-Layton basically said to me, like, they're not the same decks. They play a lot of similar cards, but the strategy is just wildly different. So a lot more aggressive. I mean, Joel still has Sphinx's Revelation, but he's really trying to end the game pretty fast.
Now, what does Ben Stark have to prevent him from doing that?
I mean, just a lot of removal spells. One of the reasons they're playing black is because black has cards like Devour Flesh, and just a lot of other things of that nature that can deal with a Geist of Sane Traft. Now, Geist obviously is still very good. I mean, it's dealing damage in 6-point increments, and it can't get hit by spot removal. But I think that Ben's deck is very good at controlling creatures and fighting Sphinx's Revelation fights.
Okay.
Having counter spells obviously is very powerful when you're both trying to resolve a spell that draws 7-8 cards on an end step. The other great thing about Ben's deck in this position, he does not have to commit a threat to the board at all. And cards like Boros Reckoner out of Joel's deck, Joel has an infinite life combo with Reckoner with Boros Charm, Azorius Charm, and any damage source. Ben doesn't care if he gains infinite life.
His game plan has nothing to do with bringing Joel's life total to 0. It's all about his library.
Right, and nor does he care about Boros Reckoner just being a great defensive creature or great against burn spells, because Ben's not trying to do any of that. So one of Joel's best cards in Boros Reckoner is really kind of just a 3/3 for 3.
It's like a Centaur Courser.
Yeah, no, there are some cute things you can do with Boros Reckoner to kind of do a lotot of damage at once.
I think Joel has access to Blasphemous Act.
Yeah.
You know, something like that.
Or
where
like
he
a
can,
Harvest Pyre.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that.
I don't think he does.
So Act is his play.
How do you make this matchup?
There's one card in it that I really want to talk about. We saw it, Zach and I were commenting on a different control sort of matchup yesterday. In the sideboard of Joel Larsson's deck, I believe that there is a Psychic Spiral.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very powerful card from Return to Ravnica that could be just pivotal against the strategy that's coming from Ben Stark, because it says that for 4 colorless and a blue, instant speed, shuffle your graveyard back into your library, target player mills that many cards. So if Ben lets that spell resolve, I'm sure he's going to be doing everything he can to stop that from happening, then Psychic Spiral could just mean that all of that hard work from Ben Stark is just completely undone and reversed effectively.
Right. And it makes Ben's Sphinx's Revelations a lot worse, because now he doesn't even have that many cards in his deck to work with.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a 5-game set. After the first game, Psychic Spiral might radically change the way that these two players are playing, what their priorities are.
Now, does Joel also have some Jaces out of the board to kind of complement the mill plan, or is he not even worrying about
I'm not sure. I think he may have, but I mean, to me, the first thing to worry about is there's this instant speed spell.
Yeah.
He has got Snapcaster Mages. He's got multiple opportunities to try and resolve this spell. And if he does, it could just be game over regardless of anything else that happens.
Now, Zach, I wanted to say, so you mentioned Geist of St. Traft. Is this the most important card post-board? On Joel's side,
it's really hard for me to say what the most important card is, because, again, it could be that, like we saw in the feature match area yesterday, a post-sideboard plan that was just all about resolving Psychic Spiral and protecting it with negates and counterfluxes and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so,
we saw Lucas Yaklowski do
Yeah, exactly. So it's obviously very hard to just sort of predict about, okay, well, it depends on what the strategy is. That said, Geist is in the deck for explicitly this purpose of just, clocking control decks while being very, very hard to remove. One of the downsides of Geist in the main deck, and why we've seen a lot of players relegated to the sideboard, is against all of the creature-based matchups that we expected to define the format, it just gets blocked and it just dies and it doesn't play defense.
Right.
You don't care about that against a deck like Esper Control. You're just trying to kill them as fast as possible. And Geist, obviously, one of the best cards ever printed for doing that.
That's right. All right, let's move on to the next matchup here. Take a look at the bracket, and we have Tom Martell advancing, Eric Froehlich first, advancing past Owen Turtenwald, and on the bottom bracket, little spoiler there, Tom Martell beat Melissa DeTora to advance. So we've got, these guys were teammates previously. Tom's testing with Star City Games now. Ifro's still over at Channel Fireball. They know each other very well. I'm sure they both have a lot of respect for each other's game. And this is To me, this is a particularly interesting matchup because Martell's deck, in a lot of ways, is still an unknown.
Right. And definitely Tom, when I was talking to him earlier, had very low hopes for his matchup against Melissa. Thought it was quite bad. He ended up winning it in pretty decisive fashion and then said he had positive matchups against the rest of the top 8. So we'll see if we can trust that word. But definitely the Aristocrats deck, I sort of saw the evolution of it a little bit when I was testing.
Yeah, you
with
said
the
you were
Star City
poking in
guys.
because they were down in New York,
Yeah,
which is where
exactly.
you live now. So you kind of said, hey, how
Figured
you
I'd
guys
come
doing?
by and,
Chat a
run
little.
my mouth, play some games. Sam Black, the designer of this deck, actually made kind of a base black zombie deck that had a lot of sacrifice outlets and blood artists. He made a base white deck that had the Doomed Travelers and other things to go with the Aristocrat. And this is kind of the evolution of a deck that he's been working on for a long time.
Okay.
So it is very much a wild card. It's a very difficult deck to play. I was talking to Zvi Mashowitz, and he said that if he had 3 days to practice with the deck more than he did, he would have felt it was the best possible deck coming into this tournament. But he just found himself sort of not. Zvi is one of the best players ever, and it's still just a counterintuitive deck to understand.
I see.
So, but what that means also is it's very hard to play against. You can't expect Ifro to have play tested against anything like this. And so I have to say that I think that gives Tom a bit of an edge coming into a match where you've got to make really high risk, high reward decisions without perfect information.
Yeah, we saw that in the last match. We saw Tom Martell do a pretty sweet play with an Azorius Charm against Melissa DeTora, and it was just like...
You mean an Orzhov Charm?
Excuse me, yeah, an Orzhov Charm. And, it's interesting because I just have to wonder, when Melissa's sitting there across from that, has she seen that play during the course of her testing, or is that the first time? Normally you will have seen each of the tricks that every deck that you expect to play against can do. You don't expect to play against this deck. There's all these weird angles. You were telling me about some of this stuff too, about using Orzhov Charm to get back a Doom Traveler, block a Thragtusk, get a flyer. There's a lot of stuff going on with this deck.
Make your Champion of the Parish bigger, potentially make your Falconwrath Aristocrat bigger.
Right.
And that is something that they were talking about while playing the deck. It's Orzhov Charm specifically, really versatile, powerful card. Again, in the matchup against Melissa, we saw him Orzhov Charm his own Restoration Angel back.
Yes.
Play Restoration Angel, targeting his Zealous Conscripts.
Yes.
Use the Zealous Conscripts as a ray of command defensively.
This was during combat, Melissa's combat step.
During Melissa's combat step, stealing a Thragtusk, blocking with it, get into. And the thing is, how bad can you feel? You're okay, I definitely didn't practice against that. But it's quite devastating when it happens. And the deck is capable of presenting a lot of lines of play that you're just not used to having to think about and play around.
All right, now let's take a look at Ifro. Eric Froehlich, friendly people, we know him as Ifro. This is going to be his 3rd Pro Tour top 8, so he's no stranger here. And Ifro got past Owen Turtenwald 3-1, and Ifro's playing Naya. Not a lot of Naya out there in the field, but he certainly found the stride with this deck.
I know Brian Kibler was working on this deck as well. It's exactly his kind of deck. Tomaro Saito built the list that inspired all of this. It's a really interesting deck. There's no 1-drop creatures at all, but a million 2-drops and 3-drops, backed by, of course, the Gyre Sage that we saw do some really good work yesterday.
I love Gyre Sage. I first encountered it in Limited with the interaction with Burning Tree Emissary. It just powers out threats so fast.
It does.
And then it's a 3/4 for 2. It's like a Tarmogoyf.
And there's a lot of sweet synergies. This is a deck that's running Domri Raid.
Right.
Brand new
4
3-mana
copies.
Planeswalker. Yeah, it's a Domri Raid deck in a lot of ways, and I know that's a card that you love, Zach. Also has Garrick Relentless.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of really great interactions with the Gyre Sage. He had one out, played Garrick, made a wolf, pump up the Gyre Sage. There's all these little things that are, and it feels like his creatures just get bigger and bigger. He's also playing Loxodon Smiter,
right.
Which is just a brick, right? It's just here, and it's good against Olivia. So he's got, not Olivia, he's good against Liliana. Right. So I think that this deck has a lot more play to it than it necessarily looks like on the outside.
For sure. he's got dragons. He's got, again, Domri Raid doubles his removal spell. The card that I want to talk about, and in particular with Gyre Sage, is a card that we've really seen be one of the breakout cards of this format, and that's Mizium Mortars.
Oh, yeah.
Ifro plays 4 copies of that card. We've seen that card be absolutely devastating over the course of the weekend. And Gyre Sage means that it's a lot easier just to get to 6 mana and plague wind your opponent's side of the board, destroy or deal 4 damage to each and every one of their creatures. I mean,
which
the deck
in this
was 4
format
copies.
basically kills everything. Like, it doesn't kill like Angel of Serenity.
Right.
There's a few things, but it does kill Restoration Angel, which is a particularly tough threat to deal with oftentimes. And then, you know, like we saw it against Jund, you know, there's a Huntmaster, there's a Wolf, there's a random Beast token, and they're just all gone.
I mean, and one of the ways that Star City's deck wins is to play an early champion of the parish and just make it huge and kill you before you can get, before you can get back in the game. Mizium Mortar's gonna deal with basically every champion of the parish unless it gets truly out of hand.
And that's the beautiful part of it, though, is that sometimes it's just 2 mana kill something.
Right.
Right. It's just you just say, nah, we're just gonna kill that and move on. I've seen that happen all the time.
Yeah.
What do you think about Domri Raid, Tim?
I've not had a chance to play with Domri Raid yet, obviously.
Oh, you haven't drafted enough then?
As a mythic rare that gets snapped up fairly fast, you know, unless I'm sitting to Paul Rietzel's left, then it's unlikely that I'm going to get my Domri Raids unless I get the first pick.
Yeah.
But I think that the key ability for me on Domri Raid isn't the +1, it's the fight ability. The fact that you can go, I'm going to put this into play. Chances are in a deck like Ifro's, I've got a big creature on the board. I'm going to play it as a removal spell that then says, if you don't deal with this right now, then I'm going to get to maybe draw some extra cards, do this again. And then on the other side of things, if you do deal with it, it's kind of like I've just gained a virtual some number of life.
Yeah, you know, I actually noticed that too, is that I was talking to Zach about this because I haven't played with Domri Raid outside of Limited, and in Limited it's really good. but in Constructed, I got a chance to see Ifro play it yesterday or the day before, you know, and what I didn't quite piece together on face value was the tempo gain that you actually get from a card like that. You know, he played it and he fought, and his Loxodon Smiter killed whatever else he wanted to fight, and that enabled an attack right now from what he had left on the board. So he did that, and I'm like, well, yeah, okay, that's kind of what I thought that would do.
Right.
That's good. His opponent passed the turn back to him. He used the plus ability on Domri Raid. He drew a Hellrider. He played a Hellrider, he evolved his Gyre Sage, and he attacked for like lethal, and I was like, wow, like you get the card right now, and with as many, you know, he's got haste creatures, he has stuff that affects the board that makes his other guys bigger. That stuff adds up really, really quickly. When I first saw it, I was thinking more in terms of like, well, you draw a card sometimes.
Right.
You know, some percentage of the time you're just drawing a card, which is cool. Like, that's fine. But it's actually a lot more than that.
No, I mean, I probably played with Domri Raid more than anyone on Earth at this point. I played a lot of that card. I think that card was amazing. It was my fantasy pick for Planeswalkers in our little coverage draft. I mean, the thing is, the card just does everything you want it to do. I mean, it beats Esper almost by itself. It gains you a bunch of tempo advantage, particularly in concert with cards like Loxodon and Smiter that are just going to be bigger than anything else other people are casting. And the thing that we haven't said anything about, but that we should pay attention to, is the ultimate. Like, that ultimate is real good.
Your creatures gain more or less every profitable creature ability you can get.
Yeah, I think hexproof, trample, double strike, and haste. So they can't be killed. They hit you right upside the head the turn that you draw them.
Twice.
And and they do it twice. And yeah, I mean, you have to be sitting there drawing some cards for a while, but like, one of the downsides of, not that there are many downsides of Phyrexian Arena type effects, but ones that just sort of kill your opponent for you as well with all the cards you've drawn, mean that not only is that ability powerful, but the threat of that ability is powerful, and your opponent has to acknowledge it, and which gains you some more life, and then you can say, okay, well, I'm not on this planet anymore, fight, kill your best guy, and I don't know, maybe play another Domri Raid. So the card is basically a deck in and of itself.
Nice, yeah, and we're going to get a chance to see that on we're going to see at least some of it on camera. How does that match up versus Tom Martell's deck?
You know, I don't know that.
Like, is Domri Raid good versus
that's the
a bunch of little creatures?
It is sort of not at its best in this particular matchup. It doesn't pair up very well against Falkenrath Aristocrat. It's not going to be able to really do its thing. You don't want to be fighting like Champions of the Parish are probably going to be big. Doom Travelers you don't really want to kill. Cartel Aristocrat you're probably not going to be able to do anything meaningful to. So yeah, even though we've talked about this card forever, I'm not sure that this is the best matchup for it.
All right, now what do you guys think about the matchup in general? Tim, do you have any thoughts on how this matchup goes?
This matchup, more so than most of the quarters at least, is going to be potentially quite fast. Like, Ifro's deck has the most explosive draws of any of the decks in the top 8. And while Tom Martell's deck has lots of cheap threats, like, I think he has to be kind of the control deck in this matchup, because he's not going to be able to fight just one-on-one with these creatures neatly. Now, luckily, the way that this deck was designed, the Aristocrats deck, is that it understands that there were going to be these aggro decks in the field, and it's been built with that in mind. So I think that he has a lot of tools and a lot of tricks. He's going to have to employ them profitably to be able to get through this. But like, I think that the Aristocrats deck could really be in a good spot against this one.
All right, now what do you think, Zach? You've had a chance to actually do some play testing with this. I don't know if part of the gauntlet was a Naya deck like this, but how do you make up this matchup?
I would put it in favor of the Aristocrats. I think it has a lot of just really powerful weapons against Naya. I mean, obviously Boros, Reckoner, which both of them have, but I think the Aristocrats plays better against Reckoner and plays better Reckoners than the Naya deck. I think that's going to be one of the key cards. That said, I haven't played any post-sideboarded games in this matchup at all. I have no idea
that is a key consideration here, as we are going to be doing best of 5, and so there could be up to 4 post-sideboard games, which is huge.
I think like Orzhov Charm is a pretty big asset for the Aristocrats. I don't think like Burning Tree Emissary, like that card is a really, really good card, but I don't think it's particularly powerful in this matchup. It gets outclassed quickly. On the other hand, Ifro does have access to like Thragtusk, which is extremely good.
Yeah.
Thundermaw Hellkite, which is particularly brutal in this matchup, because like if you run
this deck's actually running Lingering Souls.
Yeah, literal Lingering Souls, and like sometimes Falkenrath Aristocrat, you don't have a board full of creatures to protect it, so it just dies.
Yes.
And even if it doesn't die, it gets tapped, which means the dragon's getting through. So I mean, definitely a lot of really peculiar and interesting interactions between specific cards that we can see come up.
Now, one of the things that we think about when we're playing a game of Magic,
yeah,
and also us when we commentate, we think about this quite a bit too, is this question of who's the aggressor and who's the control, right? Who's the beatdown is right. Sort of the question that we ask. Is that a valid question for these two decks? And if it is, who's the beatdown?
I think it's definitely a valid question. Normally, I think one of the strengths of Tom Martell's deck is that it kind of has a lot of play in both arenas. Normally, I think that in a lot of matches in this format, it will be the aggressor. This matchup, I think it might have to play the control, though. Ifro can just deploy some massive threats early on, and Tom might well be on the back foot for the first 4 or 5 turns, but if he can get through those relatively unscathed, he's got a lot of tools to be able to turn that around.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Ifro has a lot of size in his deck. I mean, he's got Thragtusk, like we talked about. He has dragons. He has smiters. There's several 4/4s. I think Gyre Sage can get huge. And what that means is that, like, in terms of 2 creature decks, a lot of times the deck that can just go literally bigger, not like metaphorically, like, oh, my creatures are more expensive, but actually like more size on the ground, can play the role of control. If he leaves Domri Raid in, I think it becomes a lot easier to do that because he's drawing more cards. But as we talked about, I'm not sure how effective Domri Raid is in the matchup. Without that, I think it becomes a little bit more difficult to assume the control role. A lot of it, too, is just these decks are kind of weird. It's like the Aristocrats deck is just a very Sam Black deck. It produces a lot of interaction. It's like sacrificing its own creatures for value. It has like Zealous conscripts to do tricky things, Restoration Angel to do tricky things. It's kind of the conversation about who's the beatdown, who's the control is a very important conversation, but it's a really hard decision tree to evaluate.
I see.
Given the
it's not going to be that clear where you just sit down and you're like, well, I know I'm the beatdown. I'm going to be looking to assert myself as fast as humanly possible. It's not like that. It's kind of like, well, we need to look at the board, and it's going to change roles
throughout the game.
Right.
Okay, let's flash back here to Stark and Larsson.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of looking.
I know who the beatdown is in this one.
Yeah, now this one's a lot more straightforward in that way, even though it does seem like Larsson's deck could play control if it needed to.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly one in this matchup.
You're right. I mean, it's certainly not going to be more controlling than Ben's. I mean, again, a lot of it hinges upon how big of a plan is just protecting Psychic Spiral, because I could say, I mean, that is, if it works, is in theory a way better late game.
I mean, we take a look at Ben Stark here. He's playing Esper. And I don't know, like, it feels like a lot of the tools that he's going to have in the early part of the match, particularly in game 1, But also moving forward, he's going to have some amount of sideboard slots that are dedicated to these to these creature or aggressive decks that don't particularly match up well with what Larsson's bringing. I mean, it's not like he's looking to put out a bunch of 2/2s
right.
or
Yeah,
something.
he's not like trying to like sweep the board over and over again, although I think Supreme Verdict's still very good. I mean, honestly, I think what Ben wants to do is just win the fight over Sphinx's Revelation. Like, if he wins the Sphinx's Revelation fight, then all of the cuteness about Psychic Spiral is not going to matter because he's just going to have so many cards you can just counterspell it. I also think that, like, he's going to, like you were talking about earlier, have to focus on getting rid of a Geist Saint Traft early. But, at the end of the day, when you're playing 2 Sphinx's Revelation decks, you want to be the deck that casts more bigger Sphinx's Revelations. And I think that's what Ben has to concentrate on.
Because his deck is actually set up really well to do that. He doesn't have things like Boros Charm to get in the way.
Right. And I also think he has just more Planeswalkers, which are good at winning control fights.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of other nice tools. We spoke about Witchbane Orb in other matchups. Here he can use it to just preemptively deal with the Psychic Spiral plan. On top of that, he's got Planar Cleansing. Now, where Planar Cleansing is kind of nice is that it gets around the indestructibility that Boros Charm grants. Now, something like Supreme Verdict, in principle, you can get in trouble because if you use Boros Charm to give everything indestructibility, that Supreme Verdict is just a dead card. It's not doing it.
Doesn't Planar Cleansing destroy?
It just destroys.
It destroys.
It just destroys.
I thought it exiles.
No,
My
it just
apologies.
destroys. Yep.
But I mean, like Terminus is a card. I see what you're thinking.
Sure.
Yeah. They are ready.
Ooh.
Oh, really?
Excellent.
I'm ready. I want to watch some Magic.
All right, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to throw it back down to the booth where BDM, Rich, and special guest Luis Scott Vargas are waiting to bring you the action from the semifinals here at Pro Tour Gatecrash. See you guys in a bit.